Testing, testing. It works. All right. Well, we're going to get started here. First of all, I want to give you all a very warm welcome here to the Spirit Lake Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is our community. This is our fellowship hall. So someone said, "Can we eat in here?" And yes, you can eat in here. But hopefully, you won't be eating any of these seeds yet today, but you'll be getting the fruit of the seeds later on. So, gardening is really interesting to many people. Last year, we had 150 people at this event. It overflowed into the other room. I think maybe the weather today kept a few of you away. Well, a few of them away. You are all here. So glad to see you all. Gardening for many is about getting in the dirt and, watching that little seed grow. But for some of us, it's also a spiritual thing. When God put Adam and Eve in the garden, he gave them a Garden of Eden. And he said to tend and keep it. So there was fruit that they ate. The fruit, nuts, and grains was the original food that they got in the Garden of Eden. And in the Bible, Jesus also talks several times of parables using seeds and planting and the fruit that was produced by it and how it represented the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives and producing fruit of character. And so there's a lot of wonderful lessons that come out of just working in the dirt and planting a seed and watching it grow. And so as we work in our gardens, we think about that a lot. And I'd invite you to consider that as well as you plant and grow and reap. So our speaker today is Dawn. Dawn is she loves the garden too and does this kind of stuff all over the place. And so if you haven't seen her before, you'll know why you want to see her again. She has many other places that she shows up, and so, find out about them. I know you'll enjoy what you have here today. We also have this little health, wellness, and disaster preparedness day for the community. I have a couple pieces of paper here. I'll pass them out. This is all we have, right? Okay. So I'll leave one up here. You can get a picture of it if you didn't get one. I'll pass out to whoever wants one of these. So, and I'll come by in a sec and just see who wants one. And with that, I think, are we all set, Matt, and everything else going okay? Come on in. What I wanted to do before we start this afternoon is just have a word of prayer, okay? If you bow your heads with me. Father in heaven, I thank you so much for the gift of life. Thank you for the beautiful weather outside. It is beautiful. It's nice and fresh and cool. But Father, we are also here to learn about seeds and planting, and so we're looking forward to the spring when all this stuff can get started. I pray that you would bless Dawn today as she speaks, and for each one here listening to understand and see the beautiful things that you've created and given us to enjoy. I pray that you would bless each person. And I thank you, Father, for hearing us this afternoon. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Oh, boy.
Anybody want one of these? Okay.
Oh, I'm on, but I don't know why this isn't showing as a slideshow now. Something happened.
It's up on this side. Oh, I see.
Oh, are you wanting it to?
The view, presenter view. I don't know. It was.
Use presenter view.
It should be a black screen. Yeah, maybe I just need to reopen everything again, shut all those. From the beginning. There we go. Yep. Okay. Here we go. We are ready. Thank you for being patient. Okay. So that's up. Oh, good. Okay. So people ask me why I do what I do. Well, I'm passionate about gardening, and I want to be able to teach as many people as I can. And I feel like the Lord has showed me some things that I can show and teach other people. I do not know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I'm not a master gardener, but I'm willing to teach. I'm a teacher by trade, and now I'm teaching adults instead of children. So I'm willing to show what I know. And I feel like there's a real sense of urgency right now to get the message out. This can be done, and it can be done simply and economically. And so I just keep booking these classes, which I'm crazy. I don't know why I do this to myself. But I'm like 2 or 3 a week, and it's killing me. But I'm trying to get it out there, and I'm trying to do it. And I don't charge because I want people to be able to come no matter what. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So part 1 is Gardening 101. And if you are a master gardener, just hang with me. Hopefully you'll learn something. But we're going to start at the very beginning. Sowing seeds and preparing your garden is going to be about an hour long, and then season extension, and then part 2 will be winter gardening and growing year-round, and then part 3, I brought a special guest speaker with me who is a certified herbalist all the way from Bonners Ferry, and he will be helping me do part 3, and that will be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. So that's where we're heading. So let's start at the very beginning. If you can, start in the fall. If you can't, if you're just now starting, that's fine too. But start to prepare your garden. And number 1, put up a good fence. This might seem really silly, but I keep hearing stories of these poor people that the deer come and they eat all their food. They did not put up a fence first. So once you plant something in your yard and the deer knows where it is, guess what? They'll be back again next year, no matter if you put a fence up or not. They will bust the fence down, they will jump it, whatever, to get in there, because now they know there's food. But if you, first of all, take the time to put up a good fence, they don't know there's anything behind that fence, so you're better off that way as far as protection from the wildlife. Get your soil ready. Start early, okay? Start in the fall if you can by burying kitchen compost or putting manure down before the snow falls so that everything can start to decompose and get ready for the spring, so that by the time spring comes around, the snow melts, your garden is ready to go, okay? But if you're just now starting, that's fine, no worries. Do everything that you can right now. If you have animals, or if you know somebody that has animals and you can get manures, you can do that. You can add things like newspaper and cardboard. When I first started, I went out into the woods with a wheelbarrow and I just dug up whatever dark black, good stuff under the trees that I could find. That's how I first started. I didn't have beds or anything like that. So just keep that in mind, okay? You can do soil testing. You can buy your own kits and do that. You can send it in to an extension office and have them test it for you and tell you what minerals your soil is depleted in, but I'm not talking about that today. That's something that you can research on your own. So what kinds of things do you need to get started? It does not need to be expensive, okay? Visit all of your local thrift stores, garage sales. Start collecting different types of pots and containers. As you can see, these are not fancy, okay? These are muffin tins. These are mushroom things. This is a juice bottle, tofu dish, water bottles, whatever you have. Start collecting things. Because what I'm going to be teaching you today is sowing seeds. We're actually going to be starting seeds from scratch, okay? I'm not teaching you how to go to Home Depot and buy a plant. I'm teaching you how to actually sow the seed yourself, okay? For number 1, it's cheaper. Okay, so what else do you need? You need a really good potting mix. Don't cut corners on this, okay? Trust me, I know from experience. Get something that's made specific for starting seeds, that's full of all the minerals and nutrients that tiny little seedling is going to need. Because just like a baby growing, if it gets everything it needs right away, it will be a lot more healthy later on. So spend some money and get the good stuff. All right, so let's talk now about seeds. Obviously, there's lots of different seed companies. And how many of us have gotten seed catalogs in the mail in the winter and we're poring over them and, oh, that's so neat, I want that, and I want that, and I want this. So what we're going to talk about is how to select seeds, okay? So I am teaching today to a Zone 5. I'm not sure, you all are probably different, whatever that is for you, but I'm just going to assume we're a Zone 5, okay? So adjust as needed. And you would be considered here a short gardening season. Okay, so the definition of a short gardening season is 110 days or less without frost. And some of us have 90 days or less, okay? So that is going to change how you're going to pick out seeds and look through your catalogs. 2 different types of things that you can grow in a short season. Cool season hardy crops and cool season tender crops, okay? The hardy crops are more adapted to the cool climate, and that'd be like broccoli and cabbage and asparagus, and you don't have to use, covers or anything for those. You don't have to put them in a greenhouse because they're more adapted to the cold climate. The more tender crops you would have to start for sure after frost or use covers, and that would be things like green beans and corn and cucumbers, obviously peppers and tomatoes and things like that. So keep that in mind as you're going through your seed catalogs, that this is what you're looking for. You are looking for seeds that are less, I'd say even 90. I don't even like to go more than 90. 90 days or less for maturity. Okay, so you've got your seed packet, and now you've got some other things you need to think about. Do you want to do heirloom seeds or do you want to do non-heirloom seeds, and what's the difference? So an heirloom seed, and one company is Baker Creek, they sell heirloom seeds, but there's other territorial and different ones. So heirloom seed basically means that if you save the seed from that plant, you should be able to use that seed again next year and grow the same plant again. That's what heirloom means. As long as there's no cross-pollinating going on, which I've had that happen before, especially if you do like 5 different types of squash on your hillside, and they're pollinating, and then next year you think, oh, I've got this wonderful heirloom seed, and then you get this really weird-looking squash the next year. So you have to be aware that even though it's heirloom, it could still cross-pollinate with something else. So have it at the back part of your garden or something like that. So non-heirloom would be the opposite, which means you can still save the seed, but you don't know what you're going to get. So, you may have a kale that's purple, and then the next year it's green or red or who knows. For me, I don't do all heirloom just because not all heirloom works really well in a cold climate. You have to experiment and see which ones work the best. And if you have specific ones, you can ask me that I know would work in a cold climate. For me, I'm happy as long as something grows from it. I really don't care what it looks like, as long as I can eat it. And, it grew something, right? Seeds are expensive, and they're harder to find, so keep that in mind. All right, so hybrid seeds. Some people say, oh, never grow a hybrid. Okay, well, hybrid seed just means that they're crossing plants together for a certain location, like dogs, okay? Like if you take a shepherd and a Labrador, you get a shepherdor, because they want one that has the long hair, or you know what I'm saying. They do the same thing with plants. So they'll cross plants together that will do better in a cold climate or more hardy. That's a hybrid. And hybrid broccoli, I have found, does a lot better in a cold climate than the heirloom broccoli does, at least for me. All right, so we're still looking at these seed descriptions here. And you can get these descriptions out of the catalogs too, but I just have a packet here. So it's going to tell you how many days to germination. Okay, so what that means is when you put your potting mix into the container, you put your seeds in, and if it says it takes 5 to 10 days to germinate, that means that when it pops up, okay, out of the dirt. So keep that in mind. That's days to germination. So when you're sowing your seeds, you want to think, oh, this says it's going to take 10 days to germinate. Figure that into your math, because if you're wanting to put this out in the ground in May, you need to back up and go back how many days this is going to take you before you can put it in the ground. So if it takes 10 days to germinate and then you can't eat it for another 50 days after that, figure that out, and I can put this in after frost, then do your math and say this is when I need to start that seed. Does that make sense? And if it's older seed, it's going to take longer than 10 days. It could take 21 days. It could take 30 days to germinate. So keep that in mind too. But one thing you can do if it is really old seed, I had a lady give me a tip last weekend. She said if you take your old seed and you soak it into 1 gallon of water and a 1/4 cup of Epsom salts, and they'll germinate every time. That's what she said. 1/4 cup Epsom salt, 1 gallon water. Haven't tried it yet. I just learned about this last weekend, so there you go. All right, and then it will also tell you how deep to plant your seeds and then how far apart to put each plant. Okay? So as you're going through your seed catalogs, keep all of these things in mind when you're trying to pick out seeds. So don't try to pick out some watermelon that takes 150 days and gets this big. Unless you have a wonderfully heated greenhouse and grow lights and stuff, you could probably do it then. All right. So this is just a chart that I kind of use for my reference and thought it might be helpful to you. When to sow seeds, that means when to start them. Okay, now keep in mind, when I'm starting seeds, I'm starting them in a little dish like this, and I'm not using grow lights and I'm not using heating mats. Okay, I literally just put everything in a sunny window and I rotate it. So I keep everything as simple as I can. So these dates that are on here might not work for you. You might not need to start your celery in February because you've got heaters under your seedlings, okay? So yours are going to pop up and grow and be ready to go in March, which is too early. So keep that in mind, okay? That's what these dates are based on here. So all those seeds there on the left are all started indoors, okay, in a sunny window. And then on the right-hand column would be when you're direct sowing. Direct sowing means you're actually putting the seed into the dirt, okay? So in April and May is when you can work the soil. When the snow is gone, the ice is gone, and you can get your shovel in there and you can start working the soil is when you can start putting in your lettuce and your spinach and your greens and your peas. In fact, right now you should be starting lettuce and peas and greens in your sunny window, okay, for transplant out. And then after frost, these are your tender crops. You want to make sure there's no more danger of frost before you put out your beans and your beets and your carrots, okay? And I recommend get yourself a little planner and keep good records. I sowed these seeds January 1st. They didn't pop up till January 20th, and whatever. And then I was eating them in March, whatever it is. So that you'll remember next year, I need to start those earlier. Or I need to start them later. Because you think you're going to remember this kind of stuff, and trust me, you don't. There's just way too much to remember. So I always write everything down on the calendar, hanging on the wall or whatever, so that you know next year. All right, so let me show you here how this works. I used to do this live up front, but nobody could see except the front row, so I took a video here. So whatever container you're going to use, make sure you have really good holes in the container, okay, for drainage. Get yourself a bucket of your potting mix and pre-wet it. Do not use it dry. Your seeds will go everywhere. Pre-wet it so that it squishes together kind of nicely, but it's not sopping wet. There shouldn't be water just dripping out of it, okay? So pre-wet it. In fact, use warm water. That'll help it germinate some too. And then just smooth it down inside the dish, the container that you're going to use. So the surface works better so that your seeds stay in place where you want them to be. Kind of pat it down gently. And then you can see I use my fancy equipment here. I've got my finger there, and I poke the little holes for the seedlings, or the seeds, not seedlings yet. And you can see those are seeds that I saved from last year, and those are just tomato seeds. So I put 1 or 2 in each hole, just depending how old the seed is, and if I'm sure they're going to germinate, I'll just use 1. But if you're not sure, put 2 or 3 in each hole. And then just gently just cover them up and pat your soil, pat it down in there so that your seed is down where you want it. Don't smash it in. You don't want it to be like concrete, but just gently tap it down in there and then just water it gently. You don't want to take your water and just hose it down because obviously your seeds would go everywhere and they would all be down in the corner of your pot down here in a big bunch. Okay, and then label them. Make sure you label or you'll have a surprise later. All right, so some problems that some people have with germination. If they just don't come up, what's going on? It might be too cold. Your room might be too cold. The soil might have been too cold, okay? So you could warm them up. You could, if you have a wood stove and you have a shelf above it, put it above there for a few days. They'll pop right up, usually. If you have, you could put it above your refrigerator. That's a good source of heat. It's about right to germinate seeds up there. Or if you have heating vents in your house, your living room, you can put them on that to get them going, but it'll dry it out very quickly, so make sure you keep an eye on that, and you do not want them to dry out. Keep the soil moist, okay, just so that when you touch it, it sticks to your finger. And make sure that you didn't plant your seeds too deep. I've done that before, and I'm like, why didn't they come up? And then I pull the soil back, and they're really struggling to come up, but I had them too deep. And like I said, with the old seed, that could be why they haven't come up yet. So this could be a possible solution right here. This would keep your seedlings warmer in your sunny window, especially at night. Just put them in. Those are lettuce tubs on the picture there, and they're just flipped upside down on top of each other. But you can use these. These little tofu things fit perfectly in here like that. But I would definitely vent it during the day, okay? toothpick or something in there to prop it open or whatever. Get some air in there. It'll mold. Okay, so once they pop up, sometimes you have problems. Sometimes they just quit growing, or they fall over and they die, or whatever. It could be that you don't have really good soil. Your potting mix wasn't really good. And so you can remedy that by fertilizing them with some seaweed fertilizer, fish fertilizer, and like I said, use a heat source, and do not overwater. Definitely don't want to overwater. So sometimes you might see some gnats or something flying around your plants or your soil. That would be because you didn't sterilize your pots at the end of the year. So when you're done with your pots, make sure you're cleaning them out with soap and water. Keep them clean so nothing is passing on to the next plant. Keep some airflow. Some people like to have a little fan going over their plants so that, you know, there's proper airflow there. And I'm going to skip down to the bottom. The damping off would be it just suddenly just falls over and dies. And I would say that would be bad soil from what I've learned anyway. And maybe too much water too. And legginess is what I want to show you next. Okay, this is a picture of legginess, okay? Has anybody had plants that look like that? Okay. I didn't get to them in time, but that's okay because it's learning for you, right? You get to see my mistakes. So that would be, they're too tall and they're too thin, they're too skinny, they're falling over, and they're just not healthy. So I will show you how to rectify that, but I want to show you something here. Some people ask me, why can't you just take a big pot like this and put a seed in it and grow it? You can do that, but that's what you'll get is a tomato that looks like that. Okay? And I'm going to show you why. Here's another thing you can do if you can't get to them right away, just tie them up to little bamboo skewers or something like that until you can transplant them. Okay, you're just trying to hold them up so they don't break. Okay, so transplanting, this is what we used to do at the greenhouse where I worked. We were always transplanting plants. They would come in these little tiny little 1-inch plug trays, and then we'd put them in the little 6-packs, and then we'd put them in the pots. Okay, and the reason that you do that is because you want to, where's my thing here? When you first have them in a little thing like this, they can't go very far. And then you dig, I'll show you on the video, but then you dig them out, and then when you put them in the next size up, the roots can't go very far, and so it's forcing the growth up the stem, which is making a thicker, hardier stem and a healthier plant, okay? Whereas if you start it in here, it's just going to be going all over the place, and, you know, the growth is into the roots, and the roots are going everywhere. All right, so when do you transplant? I want you to look at the picture there, and in the center of the picture, there's 2 little leaves. Do you see those? Those are called the true leaves or the second set of leaves. Once you see your little seedlings have that second set of true leaves on there, then you can transplant it. And you need to transplant it because you're starting so early. You're starting in January or February, okay? And the reason why you're doing this is because by the time your plant goes out into the garden, your tomatoes and peppers, eggplants or whatever, they need to be about this tall. Okay? And they will probably already have flowers on them. So by doing this method, you're going to be eating tomatoes in June, July, August, September, and maybe October if you provide enough covers. Okay? That's why I'm teaching you how to do this, because when you live in a cold climate, you cannot take a tomato seed and just stick it in the ground and expect to have a tomato. You may have a little green one by August, right? Right? I mean, I've been there, I know. I'm speaking from experience. So by doing this transplanting method, your plants are going to be bigger, they're going to be healthier, they're going to be ready to go in the ground, and you're going to be eating tomatoes and peppers and eggplant all summer long. Okay, so let me show you how it's going to look with the transplanting. These are the tomato seeds. You see the second set of leaves there in the center? Okay? So that one's ready to transplant. So I'm not careful with them. They're hardy. I just dig them out with a fork. And then they're going into the little pony pack there, a little 4-pack. You can collect these too, or you can get them at greenhouses or online. You see how I just stuck it down in the hole and patted it down in there? I buried it as deep as I could, about up to the neck. Now the next one here I want to show you is kind of tall and kind of leggy. But I want to show you what you can do with this one. Just because they're leggy, don't worry, it's fine, okay? You're literally going to take the plant and you're going to bend it and stick it down in the hole, okay? So I would not recommend doing that with pepper plants. They're too fragile. This is just tomatoes. I would bend it, okay? So I'm a visual person, so this is what it's going to look like, okay? This is your tall, leggy tomato plant, and the picture that I showed you guys earlier of the leggy plants, this is what I did. I dug them out like that, and I literally just took the whole entire plant, I folded it like this, and I put it down inside the pot. So you bury it about up to here, as deep as you can, all right? That's how you're getting your first little seedlings. That's your first transplant. You're starting them in here, or something like this. And then you're going to the little packs next. If you don't have those, use little cups, whatever you have. Next size up. Okay, here's the next size up. You could do that if you want to. If you just have those kind of cups, or if you have these, you can use these. That would be the next size up. All right, same method. Take it out, bury it as deep as you can up to the neck. All right, and then the next one. Now, if you have a greenhouse, you might not even go to this size. You might be able to just go ahead and put your plants out when they're in this pot. It just depends on what your situation is. But I'm just showing you the steps that you can take to get large, healthy plants. All right, so can you take a plant that's been growing in your warm, sunny window like this and just throw it outside in the garden? No, it'll be in shock. Okay, you have to harden it off. That means get it ready to go outside. So there's different methods. The two main methods would be stick it out on your front porch just so it's got a little bit of sunshine during the day. Don't blast it with sun the first day. It'll die. It hates that, okay? And then bring it back in next day, a few more hours outside, maybe a little bit more sun on the leaves. Okay, bring it back in next day, a few more hours outside. Don't just throw them all out there. You're going to be sorry that you did. Or if you have a hoop house, greenhouse, you can harden them off in there, and that's what I like to do. The picture there on the right, I take them all up there around April probably and stick them there and cover them with these row covers, this frost blanket, probably 2 layers of it depending on the weather, and I just leave them there like that for about a week. And then the next week, I'll pull the covers off during the day because remember, you don't want them in the full sun right away. It's just too much, you know. And then the next day, pull the covers off a little bit more. And then after a week, pull the covers completely off and let them sit there for a while they're getting acclimated to being in your greenhouse like that. Okay, so those are 2 different ways you can harden off plants. And then getting them into the ground here. So when you're planting or transplanting your tomatoes, you want to have a nice deep hole and you want to put some manure, not if it's decomposed manure, not fresh. Those are worm castings that you're looking at there, or some type of fertilizer for your plants, something to get it going, give it a good start, okay? Also, I recommend with your tomatoes, I would put a radish seed in with each plant and just let them grow, let them go to seed, and the pests will eat the radishes and not your tomato plant. And that has worked great for me. And also garlic. Put a bulb of garlic in between each one of your plants also and just let it grow. Just keep cutting the tops off and cooking with it and just leave it in there forever. And that keeps pests away too. So a couple tips there for you. All right. Now, if you're not going into a hoop house and you're going into the garden outside, I recommend that you transplant either in the evening or on a rainy day. Do not do it on a nice, warm, sunny, hot day. Your plants will be in more shock that way, okay, when you do that. And somebody told me in one of my classes one time that something scientific happens inside the plant after 4:30 p.m. Something shuts down, and I don't know what that, I don't remember, some scientific thing, but I thought that was kind of cool. So keep in mind that you want to do all your transplanting into the garden later in the day. And the picture on the right, you'll see they are kind of in a little bit of shock there, but usually they'll bounce back and they'll be just fine. Just water them really, really well. And when you're transplanting, make sure you're putting the supports in the ground with the plant. So if you're going to be using stakes for your tomatoes, put the stake in the ground with the plant. Don't go out after 4 weeks and bang stakes in the ground because there goes your root growth. You'll destroy your whole entire plant, okay? So these are just some different examples of the bird netting I use inside the greenhouse for the peas. It just kind of grows up the side, the plastic there, up the bird netting. I've used cattle panels, I've used strings, you know, just whatever works for you. These are just ideas. Okay, and then another idea would be to do some intensive planting, which means if all you have is a little tiny space in your greenhouse or outside in your garden, just go ahead and take an entire pack of lettuce seeds or chard or whatever that is, I don't remember, and plant a ton of them in that one little space, okay? And you can see what I did there. And it's okay, let them come up like that because you're going to break them apart and spread them all over your garden later. But you're just getting them started there. Okay, so now after you put out your cabbage and your broccoli and you know where everything is and how you want it, now you can go back to that little space and take your garden trowel and dig those up and just take these little plants and put them all over the place in your garden because they like shade. Lettuce and spinach and stuff, they like the shade, the greens. So put them under your cabbage plants or put them under your broccoli plants. Just put them all over the place. Okay, that way you don't have to have more stuff growing in your warm, sunny window because by then, trust me, you're tired of having plants in there. At least I am. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like transplanting, like maybe moving things around in your garden. This is just a celery plant. You just kind of go around the plant, just kind of chop at it. You're going to have to destroy some of the roots to move it, but usually it's fine. I wouldn't do this with all plants, obviously. I wouldn't be moving around cabbage and broccoli, but lettuce and chard and celery transplants really well. And so what I do is I take my celery at the end of the season before it frosts and I transplant it into the greenhouse. And then in the spring, I take that exact same celery plant and I move it back out into the garden. So you can use the same celery plant for 2 or 3 years. It doesn't like it extremely cold, so make sure that you've got your covers on in there, which we'll go over that again. But yeah, that way you can keep using the same celery plant. And celery takes a long time to get going. That's why I start mine in January or February. All right, so people like to ask me about weeds. These are just some ideas. I've put down cardboard boxes. They work really, really well. You could also mulch on top of that. You could buy the garden fabric if you would like to. That can be an expensive option, though, if you have a huge garden. And also, if you are hand watering everything, that helps with weeds too, because you don't have water going everywhere watering the weeds. You're just watering the plants. But if you could do a drip system or something like that, that would be really nice too. All right, so let's discuss pollination a little bit. There aren't as many pollinating insects around, at least from what I've seen. So you need to think about how some of your plants are going to be pollinated. Now with tomatoes, I just walk through the greenhouse and shake the vines. If they're on a string, it's really easy. Or if your tomatoes are outside, the wind, and maybe pets brushing up against them will pollinate those. Or if you have a fan going in your greenhouse, that will pollinate them too. Eggplant is self-pollinating, so you can put a cover over that to keep it warm and just leave it there all year and just let it be. Cucumbers, if you want to do cucumbers, you need to make sure, and I know Johnny sells them, and I can show them to you if you're interested, but if you're going to do them in a greenhouse, which I recommend because of the cold climate, get the parthenocarpic. It's a weird word, but those are the kind of cucumbers that don't have to be pollinated. So if you're worried about the pollinating insects not getting into your greenhouse, get the ones that don't have to be pollinated. If you don't have that problem, then you don't need to worry about it. Okay, and then melon and summer and winter squash, you can hand pollinate. So the picture there is a picture of a zucchini, and it has a flower on the top of it, and the fruit is the female flower. Okay, so when you see that fruit, the flower on top of the fruit is the female flower, okay? When it opens up, it looks like a bowl shape, okay? And so the other flowers on the plant would be the male flowers, and they do not have a fruit attached to them. It's just a flower on a big, long stem. So you just clip off with your fingers the male flower, and you literally just pollinate the female flower, stick it in there, and leave it. That's it, okay? And then you've just pollinated that plant. You can watch how to do that on YouTube, too, if you want to. How to pollinate, or I think that's what it's called, how to pollinate squash. Okay, so how can you extend such a short season? Get some more days out of it. So this is one thing I did. I dug up my pepper plants from the greenhouse before it started freezing in there sometime in October and brought them in the house, and they ripened. They actually turned red and orange and yellow, which was kind of cool. But then they got aphids on them in December, and I threw them out. But it's an idea. So if you've got some that you're trying to ripen up, put them in a pot in your living room. Decorative plants, right? I think this is such a cool idea for people who have maybe an apartment only. All you have is a backyard, a porch or something like that. This is just a bag of potting mix that somebody cut the top out of, like a picture frame, and just planted all these lettuce seeds inside and then covered it with a tub. That's perfect. I mean, that's a greenhouse right there. I could not believe how much food came out of that. So that's a great idea for maybe older people or things that can't get out. Okay, another way to extend the season is to just make your own little greenhouse out of a water bottle. So get your little seedlings that you started, broccoli, that's cabbage. So if you started your cabbage in your window and you put it out, but you know there's still going to be a bunch of frost coming, just stick one of these over top of it for another month. Okay, and that'll protect it, and you can water straight down through that. And then just take it off when it gets big and the frost is gone. This is something I've just recently become acquainted with. These are really neat. They're kind of expensive, but you fill them up with water, and then you put them over top of where your plant is going to go about 30 days before your plant goes in. So it's actually creating this mini microclimate inside of that plastic there and heating up the soil and everything. And then you just open it up and put your plant down in there when you're ready and leave it in there until the plant starts growing up out of the top and you know that there's no more frost, then you can get rid of the wall of water. These are really nice. I've been enjoying using those. Another idea is you could build a grow box. That would extend your season. Just get some straw bales and go to Restore or something, or if you have old windows laying around, just be aware that whatever's growing under glass is going to get hot very quickly and possibly burn the leaves of the plant. So make sure that you're ventilating it during the day, prop it open, okay? This is my favorite way of extending a short season with row covers, okay? And what you do is you get a frost blanket. That's what they're called. They're called frost blankets. You can look online. They sell them all over the place. They're not expensive. They last for many, many years, too, if you're careful with them. So what I do, I go out around, well, it depends, who knows, with the weather. But I go out around maybe April, and I put down black plastic, which I get the black lumber wrap plastic from Home Depot or Lowe's. It's free. And you get that, you put that on your bed, and that starts warming the soil underneath. Maybe that's finally thawing out your last layer of ice, right? And so it's getting it ready. And then when your soil is ready, then you transplant your cabbage or broccoli out. And once you put those in the ground, then you put these little hoops in, and these are called PEX tubes. PEX tubing, it's electrical, I believe. Or is it plumbing? No, it's electrical. Plumbing, thank you. I've been doing this too long. Plumbing. They come in big rolls. So you just literally stick these in the ground like you can see there on the picture, and then cover your tender crops there with your frost blanket. Clip them with clothes hanger clips. And then you've got 30 days extra at the beginning of your season. So you do that in May. Okay? So that will protect. Now, don't do that with tomatoes. Okay, these would be like broccoli and cabbage and greens that you're trying to get going a little bit earlier. That will protect them enough. You're getting 30 days now extra at the beginning of the season. Now at the end of the season, before your frost comes, I'm just going to say September, beginning of September, do it again, okay? Get your covers back out, get your hoops back out, put them back in the ground, and put your frost blanket back over top of everything again at the beginning of September to protect from that first killing frost. Because usually, if you can get your plants through that first killing frost, you've got another couple weeks at least, right? At least from my experience. So that gives you now 30 days at the end of the season. So now you've got an extra 30 days in May and an extra 30 days in September. Just by using these. And they're like $20. So that's what I've been doing. Here's another idea. If you have a handy 9-year-old that wants to build you something for Mother's Day, he can build you something like that. And that is just gray conduit stuck in the ground, okay? And the door on the front is a pallet, a wooden pallet cut in half with with just some plastic thrown over it with clips from Harbor Freight, okay? Not fancy, but I had the most cucumbers I've ever had come out of that greenhouse right there. All right, so let's go through some other things. This was at the beginning, so I'm going to spend time on this. If you're not growing herbs, grow herbs, okay? They are full of all sorts of medicinal properties. And I will tell you this, they take forever to start seedlings, so you might want to buy those as plants. All right, asparagus, you can have the same asparagus bed sometimes for 20 years or more. So if you're not growing that, make sure that you are. The first year it comes up, don't harvest any. That's hard to do, but it needs to reseed itself. Second year, you can harvest maybe 3 or 4 of them. That's about it. Okay, and the third year, you can harvest more. Let them grow up like that and get all bushy, and then they'll die, and then cut them off and just mulch the bed and just, they're heavy feeders too, so add your manures and things like that to it in the fall, and then just let it, decompose all winter long. And this is the very first plant that comes up in your garden in the spring. Does anybody notice that? This is the first thing that pops up. And I read something about that, and I believe that the reason is because God put so much nutrition. If you study it for yourself, but that there's so much nutrition in that asparagus because we haven't had any during the wintertime, so this is the first thing that comes up to get our bodies going again. Study it for yourself. It's interesting. Okay. I also recommend you grow cabbage. It does really well in a cold climate. Even if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Learn to like it. That's what I tell people. I don't like green beans. Well, I'm sorry. They grow well, so grow them anyway. So you could do 2 different types of cabbage. And also people say, can we do succession planting? Like, can we do this month and then this month? I would say no. This is like a once and done type short season climate. With cabbage, however, you can start them in your little seed, pots here. You can do a short season cabbage, like it could be ready in 30 days or 60 days. So then you're eating cabbage in the summer too. But definitely do a storage cabbage, and that's what it's called actually, is a storage cabbage. Okay, it takes longer, and it won't be ready till after frost, which is fine because you're going to store it all winter long. You pull the entire plant out of the ground and you hang it by its roots in a garage, root cellar, basement, whatever, a place that you have that's not heated, and you will have cabbage all year, like till I'm still eating cabbage. So, yeah. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, probably till April at least, depending on how many cabbage you grow. One year I did 30, it was way too many. But I'm telling you, it does well and it keeps well. So definitely do that and figure out which varieties you like. But okay, so now with the carrots, I don't plant them out in the garden anymore. I plant them in the greenhouse. They just do better. I used to try to dig them up and keep them, and they never kept for me. I tried every method possible, and they always rotted every single year. So now I just leave them in the ground. So some people leave them outside and they remove the snow so they can dig them out. That's fine if you want to do that, but if you've got this much snow, I don't know how you're going to remove it. But anyway, I plant them in the greenhouse with tomatoes because they're companion plants. They grow well together. So I will do a row of carrots next month, okay? Then a row of tomatoes, carrots, whatever, like that. And then I just leave them in there all year. So whenever you need a carrot, you just go up to your greenhouse and dig them up. And they last just fine. If you're not doing garlic, do garlic. Garlic is very medicinal. You should be having garlic a lot. You should be eating garlic a lot. I know there's a garlic farm around here somewhere, but anyway. You put it in the ground in mid-October before it frosts, okay? And then you mulch it because you don't want it sprouting and coming up early. And then you water it like crazy. Garlic does the most growing in the fall when you first put it in the ground. So water it, and then how do you know when to pull it up? Well, the last 2 leaves on the bottom of the plant start to die. Okay, they turn yellow, die. Pull them up, and then put them in the sun or part sun and let them dry out. Green beans. This is how I get good green beans. And if you want a name of a good one that works well, it's Provider. That's the one that I've grown for the last 8-9 years. Provider. And I start them in flats. That's a picture of a flat, okay? You can buy these online or get them at greenhouses. They'll sell them to you. And I probably start them maybe in April, mid-April, because these are more of a tender crop, so you don't want these out until after frost, okay? But you want them at least 6 inches tall. How many of us have worked so hard to make all these nice straight rows for our green beans? You go out, we put the green beans in the ground, right? And you water them, and then what happens after about a month? You have a green bean over here, and you have a green bean over here, and you might have one over here, and you're like, where did they all go, right? Some of them don't germinate. It's so frustrating because then you have these wide open spaces where there's no plant. So by doing this method, you're giving them a head start, and you have a plant. Every 6 inches, you have a green bean plant, and you can see them, and you know where they are. And so if you think that you're going to need 50 plants, plant 75 seeds, okay? Always plant extra because you're going to be losing some. These are the extra ones there in the flat that I did not plant. And some, if one dies, I just take one of those and I just put it in there where the other one was. Okay, so onions. How many of you knew that if you're going to grow onions in a short season, you have to buy long day onions? It's funny, isn't it? I know. So how many of us have bought the onion sets that come in the little bags? They're about that big. How well do they do for you? No. I did research on that. Why aren't these things going? They're selling us 2-year-old onion seed. Okay? So don't waste your money on that anymore. If you want to grow onions, you have 2 options, okay? You either buy the onion plants from a nursery. North 40 carries them, but you got to get them quick because they sell out quick. Or grow your own from seed. So what you do is you can start them now. Okay? Put your seeds, intensive planting because you're going to be spreading them out later. Just put the whole pack in here. It doesn't matter. Okay? So you can do that and then transplant them out to your garden. Or you can do what I've been doing the last couple of years is overwintering them. And so what I do is I take a spot in the garden. I'll show you on the transplanting video next. And I do intensive planting very close together. And I put all my onion seeds in there in August. Let them get about, I don't know, they usually get around 6 inches tall before frost. And then I dig them all up and I move them into the greenhouse. I will show you that in a second. And then I put a row cover over them, the frost blanket, and they sit there all winter long until spring comes. And then when danger of frost is gone, then I dig them up and I put them out into the garden. So the picture on the right-hand side, you can see they're spread out more. I spread them out. Okay, so that's how I have done the onion seeds like that. And then what you do is you give them, I try not to mix this up, there's blood meal and then there's bone meal. Okay, so the blood meal is the nitrogen and that gets the green stem going. That's what you would give them first is the nitrogen. Fill the bed with manure or nitrogen, okay? And then once your greens are going pretty well, then you can take yourself an old butter knife and bend it like this and make yourself this little scraper tool and go around and wring them in. It's called wringing them in. So you're scraping the dirt away from the bulb. So you just have the roots in the ground. And that way the onion bulb can swell. And then you give it the blood meal. Okay? The blood meal then, did I say blood meal already? Bone meal. Bone meal is the second one that you give it, and that will cause it to swell. So just sprinkle it around, and you'll get big onions, finally. So let me show you how I do the transplanting with the onions. So these are out in the garden in August, and I want to get them up before it starts frosting outside, and so I'm actually moving them to the greenhouse. I just kind of loosen up the soil and pull them out. You know, you don't have to be careful. Onions are pretty hardy when they're little like that. You can move them around several times if you wanted to.
Is your greenhouse heated during the winter?
My greenhouse is not heated. Nope. We will go over that on part 2, unheated and uninsulated. So I've got a big bunch of these onions here, and these are yellow Spanish onions. They've done really well for me. And I've already got a little trench dug there, as you can see, and I'm not real careful as far as like trying to spread them all out by inch or whatever. It really doesn't matter because you're going to be putting them out in May anyway. So, and then just cover up the roots with dirt, and I'm amazed at how well they do. They just hang on in there all winter long. They're green and they're beautiful, and they just sit there and they wait until you put them out into your garden. And I think there's a day coming real soon where we won't be able to go and buy these plants. I think very soon. So you need to be learning how to do all this stuff.
Do you water those at all?
I water them, yes. I water everything in the greenhouse until November, and I will go over that too. Potatoes, if you're not growing them, make sure that you are. Go get some organic potatoes from Azure or something like that and start sprouting them. Put them in a cold, sunny place. Let them start getting their eyes on them, okay? Go online and look at how to plant them. There's so many different ways. Some people just use straw. Some people put them in big, 55 or big, huge like trash cans. I don't know. You just have to decide what works best for you. But make sure you're growing potatoes because they store well too. You should be storing them all year long, okay? So the things that I'm teaching you about are all things that grow here, that I know that grow, and that store, okay, so that you can have food. Sweet potatoes, if you didn't know, you could grow sweet potatoes and yams. If you want to know how to start the slips, I can tell you that afterwards. There's a few plants out there for sale if you're interested. But you can eat the vines. Maybe you didn't know that. So if you don't want to plant these in your greenhouse, they like it warm, by the way, so don't just throw these out into the cold. You can eat the vines, and the vines go crazy. I'm telling you, you'll be cutting the vines off all the time, but you eat them just like spinach. So if you wanted to grow it as a pretty house plant, you can just have a vine that's edible. And you need to have really loamy, loose soil. So a lot of like perlite or coconut coir, things like that you can put in there. And they grow this way. The potatoes grow up and down like this. It's really bizarre. And everywhere that the vine goes, it'll send down another shoot to have another potato. So. All right, winter squash. I finally figured out how to grow good-sized squash. How many of us have been frustrated with squash about that big around August? Yeah. Oh, what a waste of time, right? Okay, so they like it warm too. So here's what you do. You find out where you want to put your squash. You put your black plastic down to warm the soil. I just leave it there. This is just always where they go, and so the plastic's always there. Cut a hole where you're going to want each squash. And in the fall, if you can, go ahead and put your amendments in there, like if you're putting manure, because they're heavy feeders, okay? Or I bury kitchen trash scraps in there. I just dig a big hole and I bury stuff in there so that it's getting ready for spring. Now, if you're just starting, that's fine. Put stuff in there that's already decomposed. Maybe you already have a compost pile. Or at the very least, put some type of fertilizer in there for them. Just a general fertilizer, garden fertilizer, with the plant. Okay, so people have said you can't transplant this, you can't transplant that. Well, I do it all the time, so I know it works if you're careful. Start your seeds in here for your squash. You're not going to be transplanting these anymore. You're just going right into the ground from here because they don't like their roots messed with. They're fragile, okay? So start it in a larger pot and have your hole ready, okay? And maybe your wall of water, that's what I use, the wall of water is over top so that's already warm and it's ready to go, okay? So you just gently cradle the plant in your hand and just tap it very gently to get it out of the pot. You know, you're not going to be like, like this and then messing with the plant. You're going to kill it, okay? So just very gently, and then you've already got your hole ready to go, so then you put it down into the hole and cover it up, and you've got your little wall of water, or you've got this, or whatever you're using for some protection because it likes it warm. Now, then you cover it, okay, with whatever protection you're using. Get your frost blanket back out again. You can see the picture there. Get your little hoops out, cover it up. Leave them covered until they flower. So these things might be covered up for 30 days or more. Keep an eye on them. And you can water through these, by the way. They're water permeable because it likes that warmth. Okay, so it's like a little mini greenhouse in there with the black plastic, and they'll start vining around. They'll get their flowers. Then take the cover off when they start flowering so that you can either pollinate them or the insects are pollinating them. And then at the end of the season, so we're talking mid-August, go around and take off all the little tiny little fruits, okay? Because they don't have enough time. They have like 2 weeks left to grow. So take them off, get rid of them so that all the energy from that squash plant is going into your bigger ones that you have. And you might only get one big spaghetti squash, but that's better than nothing, right? I know it's heartbreaking to go over and clip them off, but trust me, you're not going to get anything out of it anyway. So after you clip those off, then cover them again with your frost blanket, okay? And then you're going to get another 30 days out of that plant. And then you'll have big squash. That's the best way that I have found to do it. And then cure them. Make sure you're curing them in the sun for a week or two. And how do you know when to take them off the vine? They die. They start dying, and you can tell. They get hard. Can't stick your fingernail in the flesh anymore. They start getting hard. Again, you can look on YouTube for stuff like that. How to know when to harvest squash, stuff like that. Okay, so these are some more plants that I recommend growing. Blueberries, if you're not, get them going now. They take about 6 or 7 years before you really start getting any berries. So get them going or buy bigger bushes if you can. We already talked about carrots. Beets and turnips, they keep really well. Also, celery we talked about. Corn. If you're going to grow corn, get the shortest day corn that you can find. I think they have either 60 or 65-day corn now or something like that. And they don't get as tall as, like field corn. But boy, it's tasty. I'll tell you what, it is worth it if you can do corn. And then greens. Greens you can do 3 different crops in because they grow so quickly. So right now you would be starting like a spring, like lettuce mix or something like that. Spinach, kale, and chard, arugula, stuff like that grows in the spring. And if you look through your seed catalogs, it'll tell you. It'll tell you this is good for spring, this is good for summer, this is good for winter. Because just because you have really good lettuce plants growing in the spring doesn't mean you're still going to have that same lettuce plant in August. Because a lot of lettuce does not like the hot weather. I've found the red lettuces do better in the hot weather, but some of these you can just look at the description and it'll tell you this does better in hot weather or this is for cold or whatever. That way you've got greens all year, and I'll show you how to do that in the winter. All right, if you're not doing Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, you need to because you can keep them in the ground forever. You can just dig them up whenever you want one. They're kind of like little not turnips, like potato, I don't know. They're weird looking, but they spread like crazy. And then they have a really pretty sunflower on the top looking thing. All right, and of course raspberries and strawberries. Make sure that you're growing things like that come back every single year. All right, we already talked about heirloom and non-heirloom, but if you're going to start collecting seed, this book on here, Seed to Seed, is the best one that I have found. It tells you how to save seed from any plant imaginable. The one there that's pictured is white spear onions. Those are winter onions, and I have a few seeds out there because they used to be out. They didn't have any, but they may in here now. I don't know. But I have onions now. Now, these are green salad bunching onions all year because I let them go to seed, and then the seeds go everywhere. And then you just dig those green onions up and put them wherever you want, and you're going to have onions all year. One method of seed saving is called when they're wet seeded, and that means like a pumpkin, you're pulling it out. Seeds are wet, you got to wash them off and let them dry. That's probably the method most people are familiar with, pumpkin seeds and stuff. Tomato seeds, you have to actually let them rot, and then you peel the mold off the top, and then you can save the seeds. Because it does some type of chemical reaction or something where it separates the gelatinous sac that's around the tomato seed. So that's how you save tomato seeds. Dry seeded just means you let the plant just go to flower, and then you can either let the flowers drop their seeds all over the place, and then you just have stuff coming up wherever, and that's totally fine. Or clip the seed heads off the top and put it in a paper bag and just let them dry in there and shake them once in a while, and then you'll have those seeds. But just make sure that you are labeling your seed. If you're like me, you think you'll remember and you won't. Okay, so if you don't have any space outside, here's a few ideas for you. I think the one on the top right is a shoe rack, which is kind of cool. But if you use something like that, they do tend to dry out faster, so keep that in mind. So just some ideas for you for makeshift garden spaces. All right, so now we will take some questions on part 1. And I'm going to give you, while we're doing questions, if you need to get up and go to the bathrooms back there, 5-minute break or so, and then come and talk to me, and then we'll start on part 2. So does anybody have questions on this part?
Potatoes, you're going to talk more on potato problems in the second part?
I'm not going to talk anymore about potato problems. No.
I couldn't hear it.
No. Just winter gardening. Yes. Question?
So you had said when you cover your spaghetti squash, I don't have problems with it. What I have problems with is it's growing out, and then I know it can freeze. How do you? Because I use plastic. I use that cloth stuff. How do you protect all
then
the
they also
vines running that come back still from that?
She's asking, how do you protect the vines from your squash that are going everywhere? So sometimes I actually pick the vines up and move them gently, because I've lost some squash that way too. Yeah, I just pick them up and I try to keep them closer to the plant. I start training them when they're little so that they're not going 50 feet everywhere. But yeah, good question. In the back?
Not necessarily a question, but baby diapers work really great on like that shoe rack for holding moisture.
That is a great idea. Did everybody hear that? So she said to take a baby diaper, and do you actually plant in it?
You put it under the soil, and then when you
Okay.
water, it retains the moisture and slowly releases it back up to the plant, so you aren't out there.
That's fantastic. I love that idea. Thank you so much. That keeps the moisture under the...
Putting ice cubes in a Ziploc bag, if you don't have time to be watering a plant at the end of your driveway or something, put some ice cubes in a Ziploc bag with some holes in it.
That's a great idea too. Thank you so much. That's great. Okay, let's start here and we'll go around. Yes.
Do you, the geoengineering or the SRM sprays, do you have any tips on neutralizing the soil before you're planting?
I don't. I have not done research on that. Would that be part of like soil testing kits and things that you could do your own, maybe? That's what I would say. Yeah.
When
Yes.
you're talking about soaking the old seeds in water and Epsom salts, how long do you soak them?
I don't know if she told me that. I don't think she told me that bit of information. That is a good question. Does anybody know on soaking the old seed in the water and the Epsom salts? Somebody over here seemed like they had heard of that before. No? We're wondering how long to soak it. Well, how long would you normally soak a seed? I've heard some people soak their seeds. Is it like a week or just a day or two? Or I wouldn't want to soak it too long because it'll rot.
Yeah.
So maybe not even a day, maybe just a few hours.
Okay.
I would do an experiment and try. And can you email me and let me know if you figure it out? So, because people will ask me that probably next time. Yes.
I was going to ask about that too. It's 1/4 cup Epsom salt, a fourth of a cup.
Yes.
1/4 or 1
A gallon. Yeah, gallon. Yeah. Yes.
When you mentioned storing the cabbages upside down, where did you say you keep them?
In a cold storage, like if you have an unheated basement or an unheated bedroom, or if you have a root cellar, or
Like would a garage, if it freezes at night, is that bad? Would that be bad?
obviously, I mean, if it's in a root cellar or something, it's not going to freeze. So yeah, you don't want it to freeze. But if it does freeze, you can still use it. Just use it right away. Like you can dehydrate it or turn it into coleslaw real quick. Get it in a jar. That way you're not losing it still. But I mean, you're going to lose some of the outer leaves no matter how you store it. But just pull them off and then you still got a good head of cabbage there. Anybody else have questions? Okay, we'll start up in another minute as soon as people start getting back in here. because I kept getting them mixed up. Okay, if everybody can come back in, we're going to get started because I don't want to keep you too long, and we started 10 minutes late, so you got to give me at least 10 extra minutes at the end. I should say give Brent 10 extra minutes, otherwise that's not fair to him. I also want to mention, I'll leave this up here on the corner. This is kind of a neat little garden planner that you can slide depending on when your frost date is, and it tells you when to plant things. So this is kind of cool. It's for spring and fall planting. So if you want to take a picture of that, you can find those, I think, from Baker Creek, if I remember correctly.
Do you know who Clyde is?
Okay, so part 2. Why would anybody want to grow in the wintertime? Well, I was kind of sad at the end of the season about hanging up my shovels and hoes and being done. I kind of wanted to keep on gardening because it's kind of therapeutic for me. And not only that, but I just wanted to be able to have food. So that sent me on this quest of Googling, how to grow winter, without this and this. Because I thought, this is impossible because you have to have an expensive greenhouse, right? And then you have to heat it, and you have to do this and this and this and this. And I thought, you can't do that if you live off the grid. So how in the world can you do this in a budget, okay? So when I did my searching, I came across a man named Elliot Coleman, and I got all of his books. And you're welcome to look at this if you want to. And I started reading about how he was doing it. And so his motto is unheated, uninsulated, unbelievable. He doesn't heat any of his greenhouses, okay? They're not insulated. And he was growing in the snow. And I said, I can do that too. So the first year, I think it's 8 years I've been doing this now. So the first year I took lots of pictures because I wanted to make sure that I could prove that this is possible. Yeah. And so people started hearing about what I was doing, and they said, you have to teach a class on this. So that's kind of how this whole thing was born many years ago. But anyway, there are 3 things to remember if you want to grow in the wintertime, okay? Number 1, grow the right things. Don't try to grow peppers and tomatoes and stuff like that, okay? Grow cold, hardy vegetables. And how do you know? I'll have a list here for you. But if you look in, especially Johnny's, they have a lot of winter seeds. It'll say winter. You'll know, okay? And the other thing to keep in mind is that the time from sowing your seed, you're direct sowing, by the way, into your greenhouse, okay? The time from direct sowing until you're actually eating it in an unheated greenhouse triples. So if you are trying to eat your turnips and they say 50 days, multiply that by 3, so it's 150 days till you're going to be able to eat it, okay? So we start in July, okay? And you need greenhouse plastic. Get the good stuff. Do not scrimp on this, okay? And if you can, get the stuff that has the anti-drip coating on it. So every time you're walking in there, you're not in a rainforest, okay? Trust me, I know from experience on that too. Get the 6 mil actual greenhouse plastic, okay? And then you will need these fabrics, which I will go over that again also. Here's a list you can take a picture of. These are actual plants that I have grown. I've grown every single one of those, and I know that they grow. The first year, I grew all of those because I saw it in his book. Cool. If he can do it, I can do it too. So anyway, yeah, and then the dates in parentheses, I actually did the math. Oh, boy, because I wanted to do this right, okay? I actually did the math for every single seed packet. It said 50 days. I multiplied it by 3, 150, and then I would count back, and I'd say, okay, that has to go in the ground July 1st. That's how I did all of those dates, okay? You don't have to do that. I don't do that anymore. I just start in July. That's it. Everything goes in July. So I'm trying to save you guys some time and effort because we're all busy, right? All right, so you want to have a continual harvest. In other words, you don't want to put everything in the ground at the exact same time because everything will be ready at the exact same time. You'll be overwhelmed. So for winter planting, I do every 2 weeks, okay, starting in the middle of July. 2 weeks later, another planting. 2 weeks later, another planting. 2 weeks later, another planting, okay? And then I cut it off around the end of September. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you from beginning to end here how we built this, okay? You can go online. This is all over the place. People are building all sorts of structures and things like that. But I'm going to show you what we did. So we're busy like I'm sure most of you are, okay? We don't have a lot of time in the summer. So I went ahead and, like I said, I started with a wheelbarrow. I went out and just dug up dirt, and I just made a row with the dirt. You can see that's not fancy, okay? And then I just went to the hardware store, and I just got some like bags of manure, and I put that on there. That's that dark black stuff, okay? So we started out with the 20 by 12. Walkways were really small, only 12 inches, because I wanted more growing space than walk space, okay? So this is what we did. Then we started by framing in around it. I don't remember if those are 2 by 10s or what, but you used to be able to get rough cut lumber and stuff. I don't know if you can anymore, but that's how we got that. Okay, so that's the base. Now this is the secret to the snow, okay? That's rebar inside of the conduit. So we got 2 10-foot pieces of conduit, gray conduit. Do not use white PVC. When I drive by people's yards and I see these hoop houses with PVC, I want to go in there, knock on their door, and tell them it will break and crack, and they just don't last, okay? Get the gray conduit. You stick 2 10-foot pieces together. That gives you a 20-foot span. And then you buy 1 20-foot piece of rebar to stick inside of it. The rebar is the strength that you need. So then one person holds one end of it, and they bend really easy because they're so it over, and then just attach them inside there with clamps to the inside of the hoop house. I can't remember. It seems like they were every 2 or 2.5 feet, something like that. It kind of depends on how much snow you get. Okay, if you don't get very much snow, you don't need them very close. And then we put a top support. Now there's no rebar in the top. Okay. So with those 2 20-foot pieces down like that, that gives you a 6-foot tall ceiling, which is not very tall. You can remedy that by building a taller base and then putting your hoops up higher on that, or digging down into your greenhouse so you're actually stepping down into it a little bit. I've done that some. So this is what the front door looks like. It's not fancy, but what we did was at Les Schwab you can get tire, tubes for free. And we just cut strips, and that's how we attach the frame, because we didn't want any part of the frame that's going to be touching the plastic could rub holes in it. So we were trying to be really careful about that. So that's what it looked like when we were completely done, and you can see the plants already growing in there. So I was gung-ho, and I knew, this has to be in by such and such a date, and so I went ahead and did it before the greenhouse was built. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have gotten built. Some of us know how busy we are, right? But if you already have plants growing outside, honey, look, they're growing, they're going to die, quick. We have to get this thing up now. We have 1 week left. They're big. So you have plenty of time because it doesn't have to be covered till October. So that's why I'm saying go ahead and start. If you don't have time, like you're doing your wood and blah, blah, blah all summer long, go ahead and get your plants at least planted. So we covered both ends first. Clipped them, pulled them down tight, put little wooden furring strips, and that has held up really, really well, and then we cut the door out, okay? And this is how we attach the plastic to all the hoops on both ends. This is just a 1-inch water pipe, okay, water line, plastic with a slit that cut it. Now this is kind of a 2-person job because these are kind of hard to open, so one person needs to hold these little squares on there while the other person, holds this open and then clamps it down over top. Now, sometimes these will start getting worn out, and then you get lots of snow one night, and they'll pop off during the middle of the night, and you lose them. So what I do is I buy those nice clips from Harbor Freight or something, and I'll put them at least couple on the tops, because that's where most of the weight is. And that holds them on really well in the winter. And then the other end, we did a huge vent called a half-moon vent, just with some door hinges there. And that's so that the whole thing can open all the way if you want it to get some really good ventilation going in there. Okay, and then lastly, we put the big piece over the sides there. And then we just used a bar to roll it up and down. We put the brackets on there to keep the plastic from falling off and rolling all over your garden. That just holds it in place there. So that's what it looked like when we were done. Now, since then, we've done some different improvements. I put some of that bird netting on the front of it because that's the side that I'm rolling up and down. And by the way, if you're just starting out and you're building it, make sure that your longest side is facing south, okay, because you want that sun. You want that southern sun exposure coming and getting as much of your greenhouse as you can, okay? In fact, right now you should be out looking. If you haven't built one yet, see where the sun is falling. See where the shadows are. If you don't want to put yours behind a bunch of trees or anything like that, so you want it the winter sun. If you're doing this for winter gardening, you want as much light from the winter that you can get. So I put the netting on the front just to keep the cat out because it was digging up carrots. That's what that was for. The automatic vent on the bottom right hand is, you can get those online. Those are wonderful. You don't have to babysit your greenhouse every day. It opens and closes automatically. It has wax in it, so when it gets hot, it melts and it opens your window, and then at night it closes it back up for you. It's fantastic. I think you just look up automatic greenhouse vent, something like that. And I can't remember, it's been so long, but I think Avent, A-V-E-N-T, I think that's the name brand, but I could be wrong. It's been a while. Okay, I've since enclosed the beds, and then we added a support beam across the top a few years later, just for a couple reasons. Number one, I wanted something I could tie plants to going up and down. And number two, I wanted some peace of mind, because sometimes if you get 2 feet of snow at night and you're just laying there thinking, is it going to make it, is it going to make it, is it going to make it? And you go up there and it's like, It never broke. It held up for probably 3 years without that beam, and it did fine. We never had any problems with it, but I was glad to have that for my peace of mind. So if you can do that, I would recommend it. They are cemented into the ground. I think they're 4x4 posts. Okay. And then we took the white PVC pipe out, and we put a metal pipe instead so that it would hold better. And then that handle there kind of moves in and out like that so that you can go up as far as you want. Push the handle in, and it'll hold it where you want it to be. So maybe you only want to go up 6 inches, or maybe you want to go all the way over. You can do that too. We added string to it. We just went like shoelaces. We went back and forth across one way and then back and forth the other way with little eyelet screws on the frame. And the reason being was to hold the plastic, because we were afraid we would get some kind of a big downburst or something and we would lose all of our plastic. But it also holds the plastic in place when you're rolling it up and down, so your handle's not flopping around all over the place. So the string was a really nice addition. And then the fan we added for, obviously, for airflow, and it's hooked up to a solar panel. So it only runs when the sun is on it, which is great. So that just came out of a truck or something. I don't remember. But it keeps enough airflow in there to keep pests away. So if you are doing a greenhouse, make sure you have proper airflow, or you will have pests, especially spider mites. They like it hot. And I have friends that bought one of those kits with the corrugated plastic with the A-frame roof or whatever, and they cannot keep their greenhouse cooled down. It is constantly over 100 degrees in there. And they have both ends open, and they have fans running, and still, I have never had that issue. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because the plastic is not keeping the heat in as much as the corrugated pieces. So keep that in mind and do some research if you're just getting ready to look for a greenhouse. Think about that. Okay, so let's keep moving along. All right, so now you have your plastic over it, and it's probably around October, mid to late October. And now your plants think that they have moved a 1.5 zones south. Yeah, I know, this is crazy. So if you started in a zone 5, now your plants think they're in a zone 6.5, just by adding that 1 layer of plastic. And you don't have to have it covered until October, remember. Okay, and then this is the best part. In November, you don't water anymore. So people say, I'm tired, I don't want to garden anymore. I don't want to water, I don't want to da-da-da-da. Well, you don't have to water all winter long. All you do is harvest food. Okay, then you go up there and harvest food. Now, if it's a nice day and it's 70 degrees in there, as it is many, many times, as soon as the sun pokes its head out once in a while, go up there and sit in your hammock or your lawn chair and maybe pull a few little weeds or something like that. I mean, it's so nice. Okay. All right, so this is the next secret. This is number 9 wire. Okay, it comes in big rolls. And so what you do is you cut it to length of the width of your bed, okay? And then the length of the legs here depend on, well, I don't know. I guess it really doesn't matter. As long as from here to here has to be 12 inches. So from the top of your soil, not the top of the plant, okay, from the top of the soil to the top of this is 12 inches. So mine don't need to be this long. I should clip them off. They are kind of hard to get down in the dirt. And another word to the wise, get these in the dirt before your soil freezes in your greenhouse. Yes. Okay, and then you put them every 2 or 3 feet. And then, this is the secret, you cover them with this fabric, okay? This is your frost blanket again. And this is actually, it's called AG19. I'll leave it up here if anybody wants to come take a picture of it. But it's actually 0.55 ounces. That's what you want, okay? The 0.55 ounce AG19. And the reason you want this one is because it lets in 85% of the light. And in the wintertime, that's what your plants want, is they want the light. They don't want the heat, they want the light. Because they're winter plants, they like it cold. Okay, that's how you can do this in the winter without heat. So people have asked me, why not get a heavier fabric? Maybe you won't have as many plants freezing or whatever. So I went back and did some research on that. So according to Mr. Coleman here, the lightweight fabric versus the heavyweight fabric, it only adds 2 more degrees of warmth, but 50% of light instead of 85% of light, and more soil freezing because of the light's not getting in there. So stick with the AG19, okay? And then once you put those covers on your plants, now your plants have moved another 1.5 zones south. So now they think they're in a zone 8. It's amazing. So those are some temperatures that I took there. It was 21 degrees outside. This is not a sunny day. And 53 in the greenhouse, so it was probably 65 or so under the covers. I never did take any readings under the covers. But here's another tip for you. When you're going to go up there and harvest, don't go early in the morning because everything will be frozen. Okay? And you'll have to tear these. They tear really easily to get to stuff, and your plants will be frozen too. So wait until afternoon or whatever when things start thawing out so that you can go up there and harvest. And I usually get everything I need at the beginning of the week or whatever, get as much as you need for the week, and then you don't have to go back up there again or whatever. And if it's going to be really cold with negative temperatures, throw 2 of these over top, or just have a pile of old sheets. That's what I have, just a big old pile of sheets. Throw the sheets over top of everything until that really negative cold temperatures are gone. And then take those off because they need to breathe. You will have some damage to your plants. You know, when you've got minus 20 degrees, you will have some damage. You may lose a few plants, but overall, most everything should be okay. You may have to go up there on one of those really warm, sunny days and clip some of the dead leaves off of some of them so that, you know, what's in the center can keep growing. So like I said before, the most important thing to know is to keep the snow off so that light can get in. The plants want the light. And keep it shoveled away from the front too. You don't want to have this big snowdrift building up. Even though you've got it off the greenhouse itself, you still don't want a snowdrift building up out here. Because if the sun is coming down like this, where are your plants? They're back behind that snowdrift down there. And they're not getting the light that they need. So if you have a snow blower or something, keep it blown away. So these are from one of Elliot's books, just some temperature readings that he did. I just thought that was fascinating, how cold it is outside, and look at what it is under the cover, 70 degrees. Okay, so these are questions that people ask sometimes. Why don't you sow any more seeds after October? Because the germination is too slow. The days are so short. That it's not really going to amount to anything. It may come up and it may get like 1 inch or 2 tall or something like that. And then when the longer days, like right now this time of year, when the longer days return, it'll take off and it'll go crazy, but it'll seed right away. It'll go to flower and it'll go to seed because these are winter plants and they don't like it warm. So just stop at the end of September. And then people have asked me too, why not do 2 layers of plastic? Well, number one, it's expensive. The plastic is expensive, so you don't want that extra cost right now. It reduces your light, and you have to have a blower blowing to keep air between those two layers. So then you're depending on electricity. So it's not necessary. And then some have asked, why not do cold frames, like wooden frames with, the glass covers on them or whatever inside the greenhouse instead of doing, these type of wickets and things? Because the wood takes up a lot of space, it's expensive, and then you're going to have to go up there every single day and vent. Lift up that glass and vent everything, okay? And it's more expensive, I think I said that. But these are self-ventilating, okay? The air can get through, your water can get through, all of that, okay? It's much cheaper too. All right, so here's some ideas for you if you can't do a big one. You can look online. These things are all over the place on YouTube, kind of like the latest rage, I think. But these are just cattle panels. So I had a friend tell me they tried this and it fell down in the middle of the winter with the snow. So what I would recommend is just take a 2x4 and prop up the middle of it. And she said she did that the second year and it was fine. So when you know there's a big snow coming, just stick a board in there and keep it up. But that's easy, right? That's a simple thing. Just bend a cattle panel over and put some little 2x4s around the base of it. Throw some plastic on it. You can also do these. These are straw bales again with just, glass doors or windows over them. And then you would just take your covers like this and put them inside. Have yourself a little greenhouse like that. So people used to ask me, is that all you use your greenhouse for, is just winter stuff? The first year I did because I didn't know, how else to utilize all that space. So what I'm doing now, I will show you. I'll go month to month on how I am using it all year. So in January, in your house, you're sowing seeds. We already went over that, and I'll show you that again here. But I wanted to show you, I have one dedicated bed in the front that's closest to the southern exposure there. That's winter stuff. It's just always the winter bed, okay? That's what goes there. And that's the one you're looking there on the left picture. The picture on the top right, I wanted to show you in the center bed there, that's where tomatoes are. The tomatoes, if you remember, the tomatoes and carrots that grow together there. So what you're looking at there are carrots and celery. So I dug up the celery from the garden, I put it in there, and I covered it. So think about this. Now think about all the food that you have available to you. You've got onions in there that grow all year long if you let them go to seed. You've got carrots in there. You've got celery in there. You've already dug up your potatoes. You should already have your cabbage. You've got green beans, broccoli, and you've got all these things growing in there that you're either storing or they're growing fresh all year. And I know this seems overwhelming, but this is online. You can watch this over. You can stop it and pause it and think about it a little bit. But just do what you can, okay? So we already went over this, but what do you start in January? So this is the month of January and what's going on in there. And then February. This is just a sample. I can go back. I'll go back. See, teachers have eyes. Yes, and sometimes I talk way too fast. I'm sorry, because I'm watching the clock, and I'm like, okay, I got it. And then February, this is just a sample of what's growing in there in February. Isn't that amazing? I mean, most people are just looking at catalogs in February and dreaming about June. But this really is a miracle. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. It really is a miracle to be able to walk in there and have food. 365 days a year, you have food that you can feed your family. I hardly buy any of this stuff anymore. I just have it. And I take it for granted, I think, probably, but it's just amazing. That's why I want to teach other people they can do it too. All right, in February, these are the things you're growing, and this was in part one also, but I'm going month to month. Normally, in February, you would be taking all of your covers off. This has been a cold March for a lot of people, so I still have covers on. I'm hoping within the next week, I'm going to take the covers off. They'll do better. They like the ventilation, and then you will start watering again. When you start taking the covers off is when you start watering. And as you can see that picture there on the left, that's the first year. Look at all that food. That's in February, you guys. I was giving it away. Like I said, I tried every single variety that was on that chart. It was just amazing. March. I need to update the picture on the bottom to 2023 March. It looks just like that. You can see the picture on the left. That's in March. See the snow outside? It's rolled up because it's so hot in there. And I took the covers off and I ventilated it because, again, the plants don't like it very warm. Now, let me talk about the picture on the top right. That is the center bed at the end where the peppers are. Okay? So what I do is around August, I go under the peppers and I just start throwing a bunch of lettuce seeds, whatever. I'm always experimenting with different kinds. Lettuce is kind of cold hardy, really, a lot of it is. And so I just let the lettuce plants grow up, and then when the peppers are done, I just clip the plant. Don't yank the plant out of the ground because there goes all your lettuce, okay? Leave the stalk or the roots in there and just clip the plant off and just let the lettuce grow, and then you'll have all this lettuce even all winter long. And so I just throw a cover over that. And then it's almost time to start transplanting peppers in there. So I just move the lettuce around where I want it and put the peppers back in. So this is how I'm utilizing the space that I have. It's a small space, really, but that's how I'm utilizing all that space to do so much in a small space. Okay, this is still March. Getting your peas and cabbage and broccoli going and cauliflower if you haven't done that yet. Start those in your little seed trays. Okay, and then April and May kind of run together. It just depends on the weather, but this is when I will start the squash plants in the greenhouse because I'm tired of stuff being in my room, okay? And they do fine out there. And this is when you'll start your beans and your peas too, okay? Now you can see the winter bed, okay? On the left there, that's all a winter bed. And the center is probably the, I don't know, second or third year before I figured out how to use the whole greenhouse. So it was just empty. And then on the right, you can see the picture of the plants hardening off. You already saw this picture, but that's what's going on in the greenhouse in April and May, okay? They're getting ready to go into the ground. And then in May, you can see the picture on the left there. You see those flats of green beans growing in there? They're sitting there where I've already ripped out the winter plants because they're done, okay? So now I have space to start my corn and my peas in that place right there. And we're still in May, I believe, April and May. Yep, okay. And then comes June. So by then and before then, your winter stuff is done, okay? You can see what it means when I say it's gone to seed. It's flowered, it's done. So usually what I do is I'll just pick one good hardy-looking plant and tie it up to one of the rebar going up there and save seeds just from that one and then rip everything else out. And June is when I will start adding more amendments. Maybe you want to put more manure in your winter bed or whatever you have and getting it ready for July, because July is when you start your winter stuff. Okay, and then June, after frost, you're going to start moving out your corn and your beans, you know, and your cabbages, your broccolis, whatever. If you haven't put them out yet, that's what's going on in June. Okay, and then you're still saving some seed from different plants, different methods, and different ways. Like I said, you can ask me about a particular plant if you'd like on how to save it. Okay, and then here comes July. So July is when you're going to start your winter sowing. These are direct sowing, remember, okay? You're not transplanting anything. You're just putting the seeds directly into the ground. Now, the picture on the left there, you can see little dark lines. That's where the seedlings are, and I'm going to show you. This is what I used to do. I used to do all the spinach over here, and then I'd go down here and I'd do all the chard here, and then I'd go, you know, do the mizuna here. I used to do that, but I've since learned to do this. So the picture on the right, this is what I do now. I plant a variety of everything in one space. Okay, and then 2 weeks later, I'll do that exact same planting again over here. And the reason I do that now is so when you go up there, you just have to move the cover from that one area because everything's right there that you need. So you've got your onions and everything for your salads right there. Otherwise, you got to unclip every single clip and pull the cover up just to get a little bit of each thing. So that's a little tip for you there. Okay, August, 2 more plantings every couple weeks. And by the way, I need to take that picture out, but the bottom right, that's a watermelon. I don't try to do those anymore. They don't get big enough for me, and it just takes up too much space. It's not worth it for me. September, 2 more plantings. Okay, and then if you have stuff in your garden that needs to come in, you need to do that before the frost. Like I said, the celery, you can move that in. But look at those plants, aren't they beautiful? The Tokyo Bacana on the left, I would recommend, if you don't grow anything else, I would do that, and spinach and onions, probably those 3. But the reason being is because the Tokyo Bacana is very versatile. You can cook with it or eat it raw as a salad or on a sandwich or whatever. It's just like a lettuce almost. Really good. And a lot of those seeds, like I said, I get from Johnny's. I'll leave the catalog up here too if anybody wants to look at that. Okay, so now we're in October, and I've already done with my planting. I'm done with it, but you know, some people like to go another week in there. It just kind of depends on how much space you have. So this is just showing you what's growing in August or October, and here's November. Isn't that amazing? I mean, look at that food. The Hakurei turnips in the top middle are sweet. They're like apples. You can just sit there and just eat them. Oh, it is just amazing. So if you're looking for something different, kind of fun. Like I said, if you can only do a couple things, at least do spinach. At least do a winter spinach. Because spinach is versatile too. You can eat it raw or cooked. And most people are okay with spinach. Don't feel like you got to go on this list and buy every single plant that I did. Please, just don't overwhelm yourself. Start with 3 or 4 or something. Or if you can, you can get a bunch of the seeds and just keep them back so that you have them, okay? This is just from the first year. I thought it was just amazing. The variety of the colors of what was growing in there. And then people always ask me too, are the plants actually growing or are they just staying alive in there? What do you think? So I did some research and I took pictures from the same years, okay, and the same 6-month period of time over the winter months. So you can see from October to March. Yeah, they're growing. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Slowly, but they are growing. And that's why you want to start them so early, to give them a good head start, okay? I have tried growing or overwintering like peas, snap peas before, putting them in there like in January and seeing if they just rot. They didn't do very well, so I wouldn't recommend trying to do that. Okay. Wow, I must have talked really fast. What kind of questions do we have on this one? This is a lot. Yes?
How long does the plastic last?
Most of them I've heard 6 years or more. I think it's around $200, at least it was. And I get this question too, how much did it cost you to do it? The first year it cost us $500 to build that. That was including the seeds, the hardware, the lumber, everything. Covers. Now it's going to be approximately $1,000, $1,200. But still, if you count the cost and you look at greenhouse kits online, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. Yes?
Are you doing anything for pests that tunnel in the ground?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, like the gopher-type pests. I have used, she's asking about pests that tunnel in the ground. There's a few different methods. We have a cat, and the cat keeps a lot of them away, and so do the dogs. But they sell at the co-op little traps that you can put into their tunnels. You have to make sure that you dig way back in the tunnel because they do false tunnels. You have to make sure you get the plugs that they'll put in there out and find the real tunnel and put the trap in there. That'll get them. And they're territorial, so usually they won't come back to that place once you get them. Another idea is in raised beds and things is to put gopher wire. You can actually buy gopher wire, line the bed with that, and then put glass. You can put broken glass underneath there too, and they will not come up inside that. So, yeah. I saw another hand. Yes?
Is that plastic? That's the 6 mil?
Yes,
Plastic?
6 mil plastic. Yeah. I saw a hand over here. No? Don't be shy. Right now it's a 12 by 24. Yeah. Yes.
Have you tried growing fruit trees?
Fruit trees? No. Inside the greenhouse, you mean? I know a friend that grows a fig tree in her greenhouse. It's humongous, but she goes through 19 cords of firewood a year to heat her greenhouse. I'm not going to do that. No. Yeah. But she gets figs. Yeah, I don't want to try to heat a greenhouse. I don't want to worry about heating a greenhouse. I don't want to worry about lighting a greenhouse. None of that. Some people, when they're just starting out, are building, I think they call them wallopinis or something, where you dig like 4 feet down in the ground, and then you put pipes, and you pump in hot air, and you do all this stuff. And that's great. If you can do that, that's fantastic. It will raise the temperature in your greenhouse some. And you can probably put your stuff out there a little bit earlier, and you can probably keep it a little bit later. But in general, the days are so short in the wintertime, and there's not light. You're going to have to supplement all sorts of lighting if you're going to do something like that. And I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah?
Do you do fruit trees outside of the greenhouse?
Oh, yeah, fruit tree. Yeah, good question, because I have people ask me that, and I forgot to put it on here. What do you grow outside? I need a chart. So you've got the greenhouse, you've got your orchard. My whole thing is just all fenced in, one gigantic area. It's just easier that way, okay? And your greenhouse needs to be fenced too, okay? Because if you open it, just fence it, okay? So you've got your orchard growing in a separate place, and yeah, in a cold climate, apples and pears and cherries and plums. I tried peach trees, didn't work very well. But anyway, you can do, depending on where you are, see what grows well for your area. And I would be careful going to some place like Home Depot and just buying fruit trees and buying plants unless you know for sure what it is that you're getting and where it came from. Because some things are bred and I don't want to say born, whatever, raised, grown in places like California, and then they're shipped up here. And it's like, I don't know how well. Know your varieties of plants and know your varieties of trees and know which ones would grow. So yeah, there's fruit trees, and then there's a greenhouse, and outside would be like the green beans, rows of cabbage, rows of, what are your other cold things, like greens, and then broccoli. Onions can be outside. Potatoes obviously are outside. The squash are outside. Obviously, all of your perennials like strawberries and berries and things like that, they're all outside. So really, the only things inside your greenhouse are those tender crops that we talked about, like tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. Those three. Oh, all right.
Poop over my garden beds, raised beds, and then I take them off, you know, when the weather stays nice. What's the difference between the plastic and that cloth then for warmth, I guess, and protecting from frost?
Yeah. I know some people use plastic too for frost. I guess you could, but I would still ventilate it, especially during the day, because you'll fry your plants. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As far as the R value on it and what the different, I don't know about that. I haven't researched it, but the ventilation is the thing that I would be most concerned, and these are self-ventilating. But I do know people that do use plastic over hoops. Yeah, so they're making little greenhouses. Just make sure you're ventilating it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, when you said position the longest side of your greenhouse to the south,
Yes.
if the south is here, then your greenhouse is going to have a layout like this, or like this, like this.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you want as many, well, it depends on what your goal is, I guess, but really, even your garden, even your fruit trees, everything needs as much of that southern sun as you can possibly get. Now, if you're behind a mountain, you're in trouble. Forget it. No, not really. But yeah, everything needs to be getting that southern sun. Okay, any other questions on this? Yeah.
Have you tried mushrooms?
I have,
We're
yeah.
in mushroom country, so.
You mean growing them? Yeah, I have. There is a guy up in Bonners Ferry called the Mushroom Man. I can get you his information, but he sells kits of mushrooms. King Strophoria is one that I think that he recommended to me. Now, I haven't had them come up yet. This would be my 3rd year, and the mycelium is in there. because I can see it. I've got some in the greenhouse. But I don't know why they haven't popped up yet. I need to research that and find out. I don't know if it's the bed is just too compacted. And you have to keep it watered all the time. It cannot dry out at all.
That lives in Twin Lakes that sells at the farmer's market, and he has his on the lake.
Oh, okay. So he sells the mushroom kits, you mean?
Now he sells the mushrooms.
Oh, okay. Well, you can buy kits online and grow your own in logs and things like that. So, yeah.
Do you plant anything underneath your fruit trees?
I had before I tried to do garlic and a few other things. She's asking if I plant under my fruit trees. The problem is I let my chickens up there because they eat the pests, so I don't plant a lot of stuff up there anymore. In fact, you can let your chickens in your garden before you have anything planted, and they'll eat the pests that are there before you put anything in the garden and then kick them all out. In the back.
You said that a lot of this is online. Do you have a spot online that we could go to?
Yes, if you take one of my cards, I have a YouTube channel, and so this whole entire seminar is on there. 3 of them from here. Exact same place. I'm probably wearing the same outfit. Yeah.
For the person that asked about fruit trees, comfrey.
Yes. We're going to talk about comfrey in part 3.
Plant comfrey at the bottom of your fruit trees. It's a deep feeder.
Yep.
It's really beneficial. It keeps the bugs away from your fruit.
Yep. And if you don't have comfrey, if you come to the free plant walk, we will be selling comfrey plants. Okay, in May. Okay, anything else before we start part 3? Yes.
Just a suggestion, since everybody's here, if it's okay. I don't know if anybody's familiar with PJ's. He's by the DMV in Priest River, and he sells fruit and nut trees for it's $45 a tree.
Wow. What's it
And
called?
they're very established.
What's it called? PJs?
PJs.
He's like if you're going to the DMV in Priest River.
Okay, it's in Priest River.
Just PJ.
PJs. He sells fruit and nut trees. Okay?
Oh, DMV.
I've bought them and I've had really good success with them.
Okay, there we go. So if you need fruit trees, PJs in Priest River. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so do you need, oh, yes, right here. So the string that went across back and forth on that, and if you want to talk to me after, I can tell you again about that, but that has kept the plastic on pretty well for us. But we don't have huge high winds where we are. But I've heard that other people have had good success with just putting string over the plastic. Yeah. Okay. Do y'all need to stand up and stretch, or are you good to just plow on through for a half hour? Oh, I'm hearing mixed. Okay, just stand up for 1 minute. Stretch. And I will get Brent in here. Don't go far.
rub you down with ice water, and then take you to your room.
talk. 5 minutes. Okay. Oh, I'm on. All right. Very good. So this is part 3 is on medicinal plants that grow in our area. And this was born out of me writing this book and wanting to have a reference with you, a little tiny pocket guide of plants that you can keep everywhere you go, and what you can eat, and then how to use each plant medicinally, okay? And this has been a blessing for many people. So then I used to just teach classes on just plants and what you can eat, and then it's kind of evolved over the last couple years, and I went to one of Brent's classes. He's from Bonners Ferry, and saw what he was doing, so I said, hey, you need to come and do this with me. So what we're working on together is kits, putting together herbal kits so that you can have something with you all the time. And so he's got a kit he's going to talk about, and you're welcome to come up here and take a look at the kit that I've put together, and then I have these little labels available that I label the herbs with so you know what they are and how to use them and all of that. So, and I'll show you here, this is what it kind of looks like breaking it down into these kits. So Brent is going to, I'm going to give you that, and you're going to take over because I'm tired.
Am I connected?
Is it on? I don't know. You might have to turn that one on. And then tell everybody about your kit, too.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Hi there. Hi. Welcome. All right. Talking about a kit, Dawn's got a really nice kit. Mobile, easy to take with you. And she's got some great ideas there. Intense time input, but you've got it, and you can go with it. We came up with a kit that was in a big plastic box. We called it Doctor in a Box. And we thought, this is great. Everyone's going to want it, right? Well, it cost about $200 after you put all the herbs and everything in there, and the salves and the tinctures. For almost any need that you would have at home, people just aren't interested. So we had all these huge boxes that we had made up, and we got to move them, right? So it doesn't get old. So we don't do those anymore, but we've got a simple little home health kit, and it's a salve, super healing salve that will take care of cuts and burns and things like that. We have a drawing salve that works really good at pulling out splinters or toxins or infections. And by the way, let me get on this because we're going to be talking about plantain here. I know that we have a jar of it's drawing salve in our cupboard. I've had a splinter for probably 2 weeks, and I know it's in there, but you know, mechanics' cars are the worst. And it's the same with herbalists. Anyway, my daughter finally said, Dad, just use that salve you got there. All right. So I did. It came right out. A couple of days it was out. And I was just every day I was working, and I was like, ooh, out. Anyway, we're not very good doctors. So, and it's got some salves in there too. It's got, tinctures, or actually glycerites. We're trying to go with glycerite, stay away from the alcohol. But we've got one that's called Yuck. It's called your ultimate cold kicker. It really helps with boosting your immune system. And then we have a cayenne one and a one that's used from, come on, Brent. I can't read without my glasses. Lobelia. We'll get to it. But we want to talk about those. I just want to talk about 2 things up here. Again, also well. Do you remember 1918? The pandemic that went through back then? Well, there were some sanitariums, they called them back then. They were like small hospitals, and they used water treatments. And they had also, there were colleges, campuses that got this Spanish flu that came through. Not one died because they followed a certain protocol that's in this book. And you know, there's things coming again and have already been here. I would, if you're wanting to stay clean of these things, or at least stay on top of them, the basic story is the first 7 days counts. Get it in the first week. And if you do follow these treatments here, it works well. And then this is by Dr. McNeilis, and she kind of goes into a lot of those treatments using hydrotherapy. But I just wanted to let you know that those are available if those things interest you. Okay, let's talk about herbs, because that's why I'm really here. Bearberry, or kinnikinick, or uva ursi. Everybody's heard differently, but I would imagine you have this growing in your backyard or in the woods just behind your house or close by. This is great for especially urinary tract infections. If you have anything with urinary, this is a winner. It's very healing, it's very soothing, and it's easy to get. You just pick the leaves. Just pick the leaves and make a tea with it. And it doesn't taste bad, and it's very nice. It also is helpful with headaches, diabetes, get help with it, even poultice for burns and cuts and back pain. And you can actually survive on those fruits that grow on it too. They're kind of mealy, don't really taste good, but you can survive on them if you had to. But anyway, good food here. And it stays green all year. So if you would dig it up underneath the snow, it would be green. I think, I'm colorblind, but I think it's green. It's still shiny, you know. You know, I was painting yesterday I was painting for a business. I was doing touch-up work for them. And you should have seen that guy's draw drop when he came in. And then I said, oh no. Wrong color. They were so close. Anyway, they were so close, but I had to go back and fix it. Burdock. You've heard of gobo, maybe. The Japanese like to eat gobo. I mean, they love it, and that's the root of burdock. Of course, they grow it, and they get it so the roots are nice and long, and they cut them up, and they're quite tasty, but they're also very good for cleansing your blood. They're very good for cleansing your lymphatic system. They're very good for cleansing your liver. So I would encourage you to enjoy the roots. Dig them up. Now, one neat thing about this plant is that if you would touch the stalk, like you're pulling them out of the ground and you touch the stalk, and then you inadvertently lick your lips, you will know that you've been into something. Because it is so bitter, it's like, woo, it'll curl your toenails, right? And anyway, besides that, you can eat the stalks if you peel them. They're quite fine to eat. It's safe. You can eat every part of the plant, no problem. If you know someone, usually someone in the teenage years that maybe has a lot of acne, okay, well, it is a good blood cleanser. It helps to cleanse that liver, and it will help dry up that oil that the teenagers usually get with a lot of acne. So I would just recommend some burdock root capsules, maybe 2-3 times a day for a week, and see what change it would make for you. But burdock is a really neat thing, and it really grows around everywhere. You can also use the seeds for a urinary tract infection. It's serious medicine, though, so you want to be careful with it. But it does clear up those things as well. All right, let's move on to chamomile. This is a beautiful little plant, and it works very good. I like to use it for kind of drying up my sinuses when I have a cold. It helps to dry that up. But you know, when you do get a cold or a cough or a flu, and you're coughing, what do you want to use? Something to stop the coughing? You want something that's expectorant, that'll help get those loogies out of your lungs, you know? I had a cousin that used to call it Lugatrons. Isn't that neat? We'd see how far we could spit them. Sorry, you remember things of the past. But, oh, I never should have said that. Anyway, you can mix it with dandelions, as is said here, and service berries. It's really nice for cleansing. You can eat the leaves, or the flowers can be eaten. Eczema, hemorrhoids, sunburn, it's a pain reliever. So it can be used in many ways.
Is it a tall-growing plant or is it?
No, ma'am, they're fairly short, about that high, depends. I can't answer that, I'm sorry. You also have feverfew that looks similarly. Feverfew, but the flowers are different with the head, but it's very good for headaches. Now, you also have, and I know probably everybody has it growing around their house, it's called pineapple weed. Pineapple weed, is that the one you're talking about? Okay, the pineapple weed kind of smells like pineapples, and you can make a tea out of it, and it acts very similarly to what we just looked at. All right, red clover. I want to encourage you to use red clover. Also, if you think you have dirty blood, or you have congestion in your body, or you're overcoming something of an accident maybe, or of a sickness, use red clover tea. It's a very good blood cleanser. It also will help clear up your complexion for those of us that are of a younger age that maybe have a lot of oil production. It's very nice to clean your complexion up. You can eat the leaves, you can eat the flowers. Most people drink it as a red clover tea. That's usually how it's used. It can be added to burn pastes. You can mix it with dandelion. Look, dandelion has so many good vitamins and minerals in it, and it's kind of an accentuator for whatever you use it with. And so using red clover and dandelion is a win-win situation. Makes a nice tea. As you see, it's very high in copper. It's one of its high things that it's high in. And we aren't using copper plumbing anymore. We're using a lot of plastics, PEX and PVC. And so there's starting to be copper deficiencies among us. And so by using this as a tea, you're helping to get copper back into your system. A healthy level of copper, not too much. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. I've heard somebody talking about comfrey. Comfrey is my favorite herb, even though I'm allergic to it now. It still is because it saved my marriage. It's healed my cuts and my wounds. It's taking pain away from me. And it works very well. It is suggested that you do not drink or consume it as young leaves. The older leaves, once they get holes, like the insects will start burning holes in them. The pyroxene alkaloids that are in them are by that time kind of gone. The young plants have them, the older plants don't, and you can see that by holes in them, by the bugs. The bugs know when it's safe to eat. So then I would recommend use the older leaves, the leaves that have holes in them, if you want to use it internally. A lot of women, I was in Africa and the Philippines for several years, and all of the women drink this as a tea to prep your body for delivery and for growing a baby inside. Comfrey is awesome. It's a cell proliferant. It proliferates your cells. So if you cut yourself and you would use it as a salve, or you would use it as a tea, and you would make like a fomentation and put it on that cut area, you're going to notice that it's going to take the pain away extremely fast. It's also going to heal that wound. You'll watch in the skin, you'll just see the skin growing back. Day after day, you'll notice, and you'll be able to see the growth, the quick growth of it. So I love this plant. It is so neat to use for people for healing. Now, if you have a deep, serious wound, I would use plantain with it or at different times because plantain will be drawing out infection, and you don't want the wound to close over any possible infection. So I would use it in conjunction with the plantain to help draw out any infections that may be there. But I've never had trouble with that problem myself. I've heard other people talking about it, but I never have. I cut my knee with a chainsaw. Dum Dum didn't have chaps on, and I made 2 big grooves right on the inside of my knee. And I don't have the pictures here to show you, but they're pretty grody. But I used pine sap salve. I was doing a test, so I did pine sap salve one day, and I would see the growth that would happen. And then the next day, I used what I call my super healing salve, which has comfrey in it. And I got great granulation. I mean, the skin was starting to grow and fill in. It took about a month to fill it all the way in, but it had, like they said, well, maybe you should get stitches, but I'm just like, it's all gone. How would they pull it together? Maybe they could, but that would hurt. So I just said, we'll do a test and we'll fill it in. And it hurt. Anyway, it did help. It was a neat thing to do. Comfrey, look, I'm supposed to be done real quick here, but I want to tell you this story. It saved my marriage. Can I tell you that story? Some of you have already heard it, and I'm sorry for that. But there was a deep ravine between my wife and I, and she was sitting with my daughter over on a kind of a stump. We were smiling at each other, and I'm over on another big tree that had fallen over, and I had a hold of a rope. And I was going to swing over to her. I was going to spin around and land behind her, take her in my arms, give her a big kiss, and she was going to think, wow, this guy is so romantic. And so I start the swing. About halfway over, I thought, something's going to have to change. Because I'm going very fast, and she's right in the way. And so I start doing this, trying to turn, and nothing is happening. And at the last minute, I raise my knee up to spin around, and I smashed her cheekbone so hard. I know it hurt because it hurt my knee. And she, of course, covered her face and groaned and moaned, and I knew I was in the doghouse. And after we got her home, anyway, I had her pull her hands down, and already this huge purple noogie was coming up. It was great big there, big shiner. And I thought, I'm in trouble. And, I was kind of groveling, I'm sorry, and all that. But anyway, we got her home, and I went to where I knew comfrey was growing, and I got a bunch of it, and I pounded it, and I mashed it, and I bruised it. And then we made a great big poultice on her face. I mean, it was big, right? And we wrapped her head and wrapped it and wrapped it and wrapped it. She looked like a mummy, the poor girl. And anyway, she actually let me sleep in bed with her that night. It was amazing. And we got up in the morning, and we took off the bandage, and that purple noogie was gone. There was no purple. There was no bruising. She says, it doesn't hurt. And I'm still married. So anyway, I've cut my hand wide open, and when I see blood, I turn to mush. But actually, the first time I used to pull it out of the garden. This stuff is terrible. And then this lady put some salve on it right after I had cut it wide open, right there. And it was like 3 seconds, and the pain was gone. You know that searing nerve pain when you cut yourself? It was gone, and I was amazed. And within a week, it was back together. It was still kind of tender, but it had grown back very fastly. So I love comfrey. It has helped so many people, and I would encourage you. And I know people that let their goats eat it, and they never have any liver problems. Those are healthy goats, but do your research on it. But yeah, it works very good. All right. And there's other uses for it too, but go for it. Echinacea. You want to build up your immune system? Echinacea is always a go-to. Echinacea will build up your immune system to look for invaders. So even if you don't have anything, it will rev up your immune system. So when you do come in contact, it will take care of it much easier. Now be careful. Some people say that after you use it for 7 days, you should get off of it for 7 days, or use it for 2 weeks and then get off of it for a week, because your body may build up a resistance to it. There's been other tests where they say that doesn't happen, so I don't know which is true, but I know it does help. And I would encourage you to buy it. You know, you can get the kind that is it grows easy in everybody's flower bed, the Purpurea echinacea. It's very easy to grow. If you get the angustifolia, which has the most powerful immune boosting to it, it's kind of a hard to grow, so you need to freeze the seeds. They need to actually be out on let them lay out in the freezing and the thawing, the freezing and the thawing, and be wet. It kind of scarifies the seed, and then it can grow better. But yeah, it's good medicine. Look, they used to use this for rattlesnake bites, or for brown recluse, or hobo spider bites. If you do get bit by one of these things, you want to take like a whole bottle of the herb. Just take the capsules, eat them, or if you got a tincture, take it. It won't kill you. And what it does is you have the, I can't remember it, hyaluronic acid. Okay, in these spider bites or rattlesnake bites, they have hyaluronidase, which breaks down that hyaluronic acid. And you need the hyaluronic acid for communication between all of your cells. So this hyaluronidase breaks that, and then you start getting, the skin starts sloughing. You get necrosion, right? You start losing that skin integrity. But echinacea stops that from happening, even with rattlesnake bites. People would, that's how they call it snake oil. Well, it was actually because this guy would come around, I get bit by a snake, I'll be all right. I got my own snakes, but you provide the snakes, let it bite me, and I'll survive. And then he would sell his potion of echinacea syrup or whatever it was. So echinacea works very good. And for so many other good things on there. Next is elderberry. Elderberry is great for your 10 minutes? Okay. Echinacea or elderberry is great for your immune system as well. Elderberry, it basically stops the replication of viruses. So when you first feel something coming on, your back hurts, or you just get that feeling that something may not be right and something's got a hold of you, that's the time you want to start using lots of elderberry. Elderberry juice, elderberry jam, elderberry capsules, however you have it, or sambucus. They've got that stuff you can buy. I've got a neighbor. He has lots of kids. He says they never get sick because they make elderberry jelly, and it's for their toast every morning, and the kids never get sick. So elderberry does work. So it stops that virus from replicating, but it only works early on. You need to stop its replication or slow it down so your own immune system can get on top of it. Because your immune system will identify it and say, oh, and then they make the antibodies and they take care of the problem before it becomes a big problem. Otherwise, without this, it may replicate too much. You can also use ginger juice. So you can get a pound of ginger root and make juice out of it. Make fresh juice out of it, stick it in the fridge. You have about 3 gallons. Drink that for 3 days, and you'll be over this cold as well. Just elderberry and that kind of work the same. They stop that replication. Also, people that use this elderberry on a daily thing, they find they're long-lived. They tend to live longer, and it's also very helpful for people with shaking issues. Okay. Plantain. Plantain is most wonderful to pull out infections, stings, if you get stung by a bee or yellow jacket or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be telling you how to use these in your herb kit, and I totally forget. Anyway, you can dry the leaves on these. Actually, the whole plant is edible, but most people just use the leaves. Now, everybody has this probably grown in your yard, grows next under your tree or next to your driveway in the rocks a little bit. And you either have the wide, which is major, or you have the minor, which is the narrow leaf. If you rip across the leaf, it won't rip across because it'll follow one of the veins behind it. You turn it over, you'll see the veins, and or they call it ribwort is another name because it has ribs. All right. Very good stuff. You can make a tea with it. It's very helpful for pulling out mucus out of your head. Nice for that. There's also Plantago psyllium, which is they make psyllium seed from, or the psyllium husk. They put in Metamucil that adds fiber and bulk to your diet there. Just want to drink lots of water with it. Yeah, and if you put it in salves or ointments, it is most wonderful for pulling out splinters, pulling out infection. There's been so many stories of people having blood infection, you know, where you see the mark coming up, the red mark coming up, and you don't want that to get to the heart because what happens when that happens? It's curtains, right? So that's when you want to use the salve or at least go out and get a bunch of plantain, bruise it, and put it wherever your problem is. Put it on the infection site and put it up above the wherever your next lymph node area is, and it'll pull it out. Yes, ma'am.
How would you add it to ointments and salves? What would you do to the plantain to be able to add it?
Why don't you come to my salve class I'm going to be having?
What is it? Well, I make salves, but
Okay, I'll tell you in secret. All right. Let me put a plug in here. I'm going to be having a salve class, not here, but in Sandpoint, but close by it is. Huh? Athol, thank you. May 4th. May 4th at the that big building where you can go in and go underneath. The community center. And I think it's starting at 5:30. And we're going to be making salves and tinctures. 5:30 till 8 probably. We're going to be making salves and tinctures and charcoal poultices and lots of neat things like that. How to do treatments and stuff. We are asking if you would come. If you want to leave with something, we're asking a $30 charge, and that covers the salve and the tincture and all the oil and all the stuff we got to do to make it. But we welcome you to that. It's May 4th, and we'd love to have you there. To answer your question, ma'am, 2 ways that I know that work best is either to use the dry leaf and put it in your olive oil. And I usually do 14 days or more, and I usually put it on top of the stove, on the back of the stove so it's warm. If you want to do it in a hyper way, you could raise it maybe to 140 degrees. And some people say, well, you can do it in three hours that way. Or you can pick it fresh, and you want to wilt it. You want to wilt it, but not dry it out, but just wilt it. And then it still has a lot more life in it. And then make a salve out of that with the oil, into the oil. Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. It's great for diarrhea. If you have diarrhea, it'll help pull out the offending agents. So plantain works a lot like charcoal, as well as it goes for pulling out infections and stuff. As you see, it's good for many other things. I'm going over time here, I'm sorry. St. John's wort. I love St. John's wort too. People that have cattle or horses may not like it because it can tend to cause sunburn in the animals that eat it. They get photosensitive. But a lot of people use it for depression. If you use the leaves and use the leaves for making your herbal supplements out of, a lot of people use it for depression. But I like to use the flowers as well. And what I do is I use the flowers and the leaves. I go out and I pick a huge amount of these things. And that's the last of June or the 1st of July is when you'll probably see it. Try to get it not on a gravel road because the dust will be all over it. Try to get it where it's not by a road. But anyway, just pick them and pick them and pick them and pick them. Fill up your bag, and then go and put it in olive oil. Fill up your big glass jar and pour olive oil over it till it's totally covered with olive oil, and then save it for a couple weeks. And in 14 days at least, you're going to notice that that nice green olive oil has turned a most beautiful red. And those are the hypericums that come out of that yellow flower. And these are so healing. So it can be used for burns. It can be used for cuts. Look, if you cut a nerve, if you have this stuff on hand and you've lost feeling in part of your appendages or whatever, use that oil and it will bring back your nerves. It will grow them back together very quickly. It'll take some time, but it'll be the fastest thing around, even better than comfrey. So it really works well, works good. Many other good things too. Ma'am, I'm sorry, this lady, you had your hand up and I didn't, no? It's 4:30. I got 5 minutes. Get with it.
How about neuropathy
Neuropathy.
with that?
Oh, okay, thank you. I'll answer questions at the end. Come up to me. Nettles. Look, if you guys don't know this plant, get to know it. And the best way to get to know it is walk through it. And it will tell you that it is there. It will not kill you. It will light you up a little bit. And in fact, if that happens, just take the leaves, smash them or chew on them, and then put that on the area, and it'll take care of the sting for you, okay? But stinging nettles have so much nutrition in them. They have so much good nutrition. So the first thing in the spring, they're starting to come up, maybe not down here yet. There's still snow on the ground. But probably next month, they'll start popping. For me, I'm up a little bit higher in Bonner's Ferry. I might have to wait 2 months. But lots of nutrition in them. Pick them as greens. Go out and start picking them. When they're real little, it's likely they won't even sting you if they're that small. And then they'll start getting more shoots coming up. We'll pick those a couple weeks later. And then you got more shoots coming up. And then go back and pick those a couple weeks later. And then you have all these greens that are so healthy. Make a soup out of it. Make whatever out of it, but eat it because it's what you need when you're coming out of the wintertime. It's very healing, very good. It's great for people that have allergies, anemia, warts, you call it, you name it, whatever. Also, look, we're coming into a bad time here, I think. And you may not be able to buy hay for your animals. Use this as hay. Dry it, and the sting goes away. Or if you cook it, the sting goes away. But nonetheless, you could dry this, and people in the past have used this for hay for their animals. It's very nutritious. It's very good for you. She's looking at me funny. Come on now. I'm almost done. I do this to her every time. Wild lettuce is good for pain. You'll see it growing out in anywhere. It just grows everywhere. Anywhere that's been disturbed, it'll grow very well. Look, just go up and pull this plant, and you can dry it, and then just chop it all up. Use your wife's Vitamix. Oh, it's okay, honey. Anyway, use it and grind it up, and then put like a quarter of a quart jar filled with the stem and the leaves. Pour boiling water over it, and then drink that for pain. Or drink that for, you can't get to sleep, drink it. Look, it has a little bit of opiates in it. Yeah, come on, it's just opium. But it's very little, and it's not really very, you can't really get a habit on it because it tastes so bitter. So it doesn't cause habit formation. But it's good for so many things. And you can put a little honey in it, and it takes that bad part away. A lot of people they'll try to cut it while it's green. If you break the stems or the leaves, and there'll be like a white milk that comes out of that. That's the substance that people go for. And if you have the time to do all that, you can greatly decrease your pain. And actually, if you have a bad day, it's not so bad anymore. Anyway, I'm going. Yarrow, look, you want yarrow. Yarrow grows all around. It's good for so many things. Just use it and enjoy it. High blood pressure, hemorrhoids, promotes sweating. That's what we used it for and are giving our hydro treatments. Cayenne pepper. If you have a heart attack or if you have a stroke, you want cayenne pepper. You want someone to come up to you and squirt some in your mouth or to shoot a cayenne pepper in your mouth. You might just survive that stroke or that cayenne or that heart attack without dying. That's great first aid that you should have with you in your purse or in your car. You see somebody go down, just come up to them and give them cayenne, and they may survive. Likely they will. Or look, it stops bleeding. So if they're bleeding and they can't get it to stop, shoot it in their mouth. In 10 seconds, usually the bleeding stops. Or put it right in the cut, and you'll watch them do a dance, and it will stop the bleeding. I've done it myself. I know it works. Okay, it's got lots of nutrition. It's good to have. Look, hawthorn berry, if you have heart issues, use hawthorn berry. If you have arrhythmia, if you have anything to do with your heart, please use hawthorn berry. Some people, do your own research. Some people may have a little issue with high blood pressure with it, but otherwise, hawthorn berry works very good. My wife uses it with much success for her heart issues. Okay, Lobelia inflata. Lobelia inflata is an emetic when used in high doses, meaning it will make you vomit. But if you use it in small doses, drops under the tongue, it is an antispasmodic. So if you have anybody that has breathing issues, they get into smoke or they get into perfume or something and they start having an asthmatic attack, those little alveoli, the bronchi spasm. They go into spasm and the people can't breathe. You want this as well in your emergency kit so you can squirt that in their mouth and they can breathe again. It opens up, it takes that spasm out of the bronchi so people can breathe. So anyway, you need to have that too. And if you drink a lot of it, you will puke your toenails up. I guarantee you. Are you happy? She's still happy. Oregon grapefruit, don't take this if you're pregnant, because Oregon grape it's a uterine stimulant, and it would cause you to lose your child probably. But otherwise, it has lots of berberine in it, and berberine is very good for mucous membranes, just like golden seal. This is called poor man's golden seal, Oregon grape, and I know it grows everywhere around here, right? And just go eat some of the grapes in the summertime, or even the yellow flowers, the gold flowers, or the grapes, and you'll taste that berberine taste. And that's the same taste that you would, usually people would take the roots, you would pull this plant out of the ground and you would scrape the roots, and that yellow color is under the dirt, under the dirty cover of the roots. And that's, you just use the whole roots, put them in a blender, chew it up, and then you could use that as well. Pine. Make a tea out of the needles. High in vitamin C, and it will be very helpful of getting rid of your problems. If you have, what came on us the last couple of years, this disease? Well, same thing. This works very good at that, and it stops it. I've talked to many people that have said, I use this, and that, whatever it was, left me. And I didn't go through all the problems that my neighbors did and were in the hospital for all these days with ventilators and stuff. Raspberry tea, our young ladies, as they're growing up, there's an age group where they're kind of snarky. You know about that, right? Well, raspberry tea should be included in their regimen, and they will become more pleasant to live with. And it will also help to balance those hormones and help things work better. And also, women that are having babies like to use this to help with the delivery process. So thank you very much for putting up with me. If you have questions, I'd love to entertain them. Yes, ma'am?
How do essential oils with these? Are they kind of the same, or you use the essential oils like making it be like that?
Essential oils, okay. Essential oils are very powerful, no doubt about it. And I am not I don't know. I know about them, and I know they work very good, but that's not my parte.
When you add the olive oil in some ways, you almost make them like essential oil, right? Kind of?
It's different. It's totally different. Yeah, you're getting some of that medicinal, but the essential oils are powerful. All right, and they don't mix. Yeah.
Let me just say something before you all leave. I saw a lot of you taking pictures of the screen. Well, if you go to YouTube and you go to the Spirit Lake Seventh-day Adventist Church, this has been streamed and it's now on YouTube. So you can go back and watch us again and again. All right? And I'm going to be standing by the door with a couple packets of seeds here. They're all kind of a variety of things. If you want to grab one, see me at the door.
Yes. Sir, you had your hand up?
Neuropathy.
Neuropathy.
You said that it would heal nerves. Would it be effective in neuropathy?
I haven't. I would. What we have used is using. Okay.